Here, go live there. Bang. One. Hey, Nick, how you doing? Great art once again, my friend. We got to talk, man. We got to talk. Jenny! How are you, honey? Good to see you here.
That's too much Forrest Gump there.
You know, just let it go. Let it go. That's my thing for her. She's awesome. She's like here every night. I love her. Andrew Harbinson. Not ready for that. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find us on our website. Merle is back for another great edition of Ghosts of the Great White North, as he is actually in studio tonight. Tonight we are looking at demons. Are demons real? Is there evil on the other side trying to lead us to temptation? To talk about this, we are joined by James Anito and Carl Johnson of Duo Demonology. James is a deacon through the United States Old Catholic Church and a demonologist who has worked alongside many other specialists in the field. James is also a paranormal investigator and researcher and a member of the Sanctuary Paranormal Team and former founder and owner of the Dominion Ministry. Carl, by the way, we got to call him Demon Carl around here, or Demon Hunter Carl, because we don't want to get him confused with Alien Carl or Human Carl. Well, he's been investigating reports of strange phenomena for the past 47 years, beginning with his association with the noted ghost hunting couple Ed and Lorraine Warren. As members of the team based in Rhode Island College, Carl and his twin brother Keith were called in to investigate the Perrin family's farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, during August and September of 1973. You better know that situation as The Conjuring. Then, at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Merle, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic, Dave. It's great to be up in your studio.
It is. It's good. We had a good day today.
Strong day.
Very strong day. Very strong day. We had some good pictures taken. You know, my hair was fantastic. I'm not going to lie, Merle. It was fantastic.
You had strong hair going. We got some good drone footage.
We did. We did. We can't say why. We got to keep a little secret there.
It was an abandoned town somewhere in the Rockies. 5 hours out of
Rockies. We're not in the Rockies.
Sorry, the Caribou.
Caribou. Thank you.
I don't even know my own areas. The Caribou, abandoned town.
We were almost killed by a grizzly bear, even though there was no grizzly bear around, but just for dramatics and effect.
And we almost went down a rock slide twice.
Twice. And almost got swept into a river.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it was rough out there. It was rough. I think Merle actually got a scratch on his finger, and I got a cracked fingernail. It was dangerous out there.
The wind hurt your hair.
It totally did. It totally did.
Let's bring on the guests, because they're probably like, what the heck is going on?
Absolutely. From Duo Demonology, we have James Anito and Carl Johnson. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight and talk some paranormal as we draw closer to Halloween.
Hello there, yes.
Hello. Good evening.
As we are approaching that time of year where the veil is thinner between the world of thought and spirit and the world of the living. I've heard something about that.
I got to ask, do you really believe that at this time of year the veil is thinner? What the hell really is the veil?
Only because people have believed in that for so long. It's like the myth becomes reality after a while. Traditions have some weight to them, some substance. And because for a millennia ago too, persons believed that at the end of October, It was a time when spirits could cross over from their world of spirit into our physical world. And they would sometimes try to settle grudges or reunite with loved ones. Usually they were settling grudges, they would haunt, all that. And that's why we have the tradition of the jack-o'-lantern, which is evil against evil. It's supposed to be a scary face, that was going to ward off the bad spirits. Although originally it wasn't a pumpkin, it was usually a turnip, and they'd carve that out and put it in the windowsill. And I'm talking about probably the what we now call the Dark Ages, 500 AD. This was a common practice. And that's the origin of Halloween. It's come down to us. Now it's a time of celebration, of course, except we can't do a heck of a lot of celebrating this year. But it's a time when the ghosts and goblins are at their strongest, their zenith of power. They have sway over the earth, especially for that one night, October 31st, and that precedes All Souls Day.
Very
now,
true.
Of course, it's originally a pagan tradition that became Christianized, and then it became a night of frivolity.
Yeah. Nowadays, you just eat enough candy, you see the spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. Remember when Halloween, the only thing that was really dangerous was lacing candy with razor blades and drugs? I mean, what happened to the good old days here?
What happened to those good old traditions? Traditions become real. Yeah, when you had to be careful. Now you just can't go anywhere, and you have to be careful that way. At least that's the way it is in our side.
Well, so far, here in British Columbia, knock on wood, there will be trick-or-treating allowed.
Oh, good.
There will be.
River Island.
Yeah. So if anybody wants candy going door to door, you have to come up to British Columbia to do that. If you go to Ontario, they're going to be shut down. Come to BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. We're all good. We like our candy here. We're not ruining it for the kids.
Love a good bar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our state, the governor has kind of ruined it for children. They can go trick-or-treating in the daytime, and there are no Halloween parties, So,
well, either way, going to get some big fireworks going. Going to get some big fireworks. The reason why I asked about the veil is for a lot of people, there's a lot of debate. The spiritual world tends to believe, James, that there is a large veil that thins at this time of year. I've never seen anything thin because my waistline right this time of year gets a little wider, and I can honestly say, man, that I really don't know. I buy into a lot of woo, but when it comes to this whole veil thing, I'm not sure I'm into it. I'm not sure that I get it or even understand what it is.
Well, it used to be taken quite seriously, not so much now. I mean, the only thing I feel about Halloween is it's very nostalgic for me. I mean, it was my favorite holiday as a kid, and I used to, as soon as it became September, I would say, oh, my word, 2 months before Halloween. And they would have a series of monster movies on the television and the classic horror films, with Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, and the Wolfman, in that order. And we would watch these just waiting for Halloween, and every time the sun set behind the trees, I would say, oh, 2 and 3 more nights, this is going to be Halloween night. 2 more nights, then tomorrow night, when the sun sets, it will be Halloween. And I've lost a lot of that. It's hard to remember. I still feel a little bit of the magic. There's just a resonance that remains. I just feel I remember my parents used to make Halloween happen, and we'd go out trick-or-treating, my brother and sister and I. And there's just a little bit of that glimmer or shimmer, a little bit of that feeling remains, but it's almost dissipated, But that's the magic of Halloween for me, and it really does feel like there's a veil that's opening up at that time, or it used to, and I wonder how that connects to the old traditions, because Halloween was taken very seriously. You did not venture out on Halloween night, and I'm saying if this is like 800 A.D., that was a night of much dread. You kept your shutters closed, you stayed inside by the hearth, and probably you told ghost stories. But it wasn't a fun night. You think of, Night of the Living Dead or something. It was supposed to be like that, or The Walkers. It was a time of somber reflection and fear. But I'm sure the younger people never took it that seriously, and eventually by the 1700s it was, frivolity, and I don't think they paid much attention to it by the 15 and 1600s. And then in the 1800s, it becomes kind of a quasi-holiday. And that's when there would be mischief. Adolescents would go out and soap windows or throw potatoes at houses and egg carriages. So somebody, I don't recall her name, she decided to turn that into more of a fun holiday and start Halloween parties. So that's the chronology of Halloween in a nutshell. It used to be taken quite seriously, but I just miss it. I miss the way it used to be.
Yeah, I don't understand this whole thing. I've never seen the concept, only in the United States, where people take their kids out trick-or-treating during the day. Never seen that up here.
No, it doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen here.
It happens. You can still see their costumes and all that. The only thing is that I don't think too many people are in the mood for, passing out candy in the middle of the day. It used to have such an aura. We had so many kids, and you see their costumes, and when we'd fill our bags up. What I'll do is I'll go over and see my young nephews and niece, and I'll get my jollies that way.
Perfect. Used to bug me about Halloween, gentlemen.
What's that?
Is I don't know if it was like that down in the United States, but up here in Canada, leading up to Halloween, all of the television stations back then, and this is going back before you had 200, 300, 400 channels. But all the channels back then would play these Halloween movies at night, starting at about 9 o'clock. So get all the kids to bed and then start playing the Halloween movies. But they were so edited. I mean, you'd be all excited to watch Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or Jaws on regular cable, and they were so edited from all the good gore, and it took the thrill right out of it. It's like, really? We're taking a good, solid horror movie down to, Anne of Green Gables or something like that. That is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Very Canadian.
I know just what you're saying. They did that with us, too. But then again, in my era, when I was growing up, and they used to rerun these old movies, play them, they were black and white, and there wasn't gore in them. Just black trickle for blood. And so they didn't have to edit them. If anything, they edited them for the commercials.
Yes.
To get the commercials in, and they would be playing earlier. But I know what you mean about editing these if they're on regular cable. You might as well not even watch them, because if you haven't seen them, you don't know what you're missing. If you have seen them, you're bummed out because, Freddy's supposed to cut open her throat then. What's happening, man? Where did that go?
Exactly.
Mm.
Merle, you're allowed to participate too,
I know. I'm just about to shift it into second.
Uh-oh.
I want to jump right into your parent-family experience.
Oh.
I want you to take us through from your initial investigation, outreach from the family, to working with the Warrens.
Okay, well, that's actually how I got to know the Warrens better. I met Ed and Lorraine Warren at a lecture, the presentation at Rhode Island College, Providence, Rhode Island. And that was way back in, it was May 1972. No, it was April 1972. And I saw the Warrens, my brother saw them, and I said, that's who I want to be when I grow up. And then they had some audience participation, so they actually called me up on stage. And I got to know Ed and Lorraine, and actually lectured with them several times. I became friendly and helpful to them. And so then this group based at Rhode Island College, I was invited to join that group the night I met Ed and Lorraine. And I became a member of that. And it was called PIRO, Parapsychology Investigatory and Research Organization. So we decided as a group we wanted to tackle some residential cases. To that effect, my brother placed an ad in a local paper advertising our services and saying we don't charge to investigate your house, letting people know of our existence. Well, 3 weeks to the day after that ad was placed, PIRO was contacted by a Mrs. Carolyn Perrin. And she told us about her farmhouse in Harrisville. She and her husband Roger had moved into 2 years before, and they felt it was thoroughly haunted. They would like us to come out and give our evaluation of it, investigate. We drove to the parents' house, and this was before GPS, so it was kind of spooky even finding the place. And there was Carolyn Perrin there, and we performed what we thought was a scientific investigation. in that we were recording and we were taking pictures, very few of which exist now. And freaky things were happening. That initial time we went to the parents' house. It's 1677 Round Top Road in Harrisville, Rhode Island. I heard noises upstairs. Like, this was during the interview process. Now, present were myself, Carl, my brother Keith Johnson, and Donna Neufeld. Well, Donna Eisenstadt, her name was then, and she was the case manager and president of Pyro, and two other investigators. So, and my brother came out of our car. See, back then, my twin brother, he had long reddish blonde hair, parted in the middle, had long sideburns, and he was wearing a white muslin shirt and carrying a Bible. So one of the daughters, the parents had 5 daughters, Judy is looking out the window, and she sees my brother, and she says, "Mom, Jesus is here." So right away, we were hit with the parents. So we're conducting the interview process, my brother and Donna and myself, and then I heard moving around in the upstairs bedrooms area. I asked the parents, Mrs. Perrin, do you have company upstairs? Because I hear people up there. And Carolyn Perrin and the daughter said, "Oh, no, we hear that almost every day." So I waited for the interview to resume, and I kind of made my way upstairs. And when I went upstairs, I'd been up there a minute or two, and I saw out of my right peripheral vision something black, colorless, dark, rolling down towards me past the bedrooms. I turned and looked, and this black thing was coming at me. It was shapeless, so it's hard to describe. It's amorphous, and then it comes toward me. My first thought is there's a fire in the house, and I'm going to smell smoke. But then it came upon me, and it just vanished. So, whoa, that was strange. So I went back downstairs, gave my brother the look, like something's up. And then I went down to the basement. I was the first one to go to the back. Our case manager did not dare to go down to the basement at any time. She never did. And she was kind of nervous about going upstairs, too. So I'm down in the basement looking around. At that time, the basement area was illuminated by one hanging light bulb. While I'm down there, the light bulb just shut off. It just failed. Bloop. So I'm in almost total darkness. You can imagine an 18-year-old Carl just in the darkness. You just hear this voice says, "Oh, shit." But I made my way up to the stairwell and I went over there and made my way back up. Then we all, as a team, went upstairs. Donna needed some persuading, some coaching to go upstairs. And there was one window in a bedroom that would not shut. It was August, and it was sweltering in the rest of the house, but this window wouldn't close, and it was ice cold in that bedroom. Should have been hot. I tried to close it. Roger said he couldn't close it. I couldn't. It was just jammed open. Well, my brother decided to read from the Bible just as an experiment and kind of a blessing. And when he said the name of Jesus, that window closed, slammed shut. Coincidence? What would Jerry Seinfeld say? Coincidence? I think not. And then the daughter Nancy had some red welts in her face. It looked as though she'd been slapped. So we figured this is gangbusters. We didn't think it was enough to drive a family out of their home. But of course the parents had to live with this, so they were pretty agitated. And so we thought that a successful investigation. Wrote up a report about our investigation. And Carolyn Perrin, she assumed I was the director of our team because I had the deep voice and I was assigning people, where to be and where to record. So Carolyn and I established a rapport, and Carolyn would call me it was every day. For a couple of weeks, she was calling me, telling me about the activity in her home. Like the time she called me right back because she was slicing an orange on her kitchen counter, and red fluid like blood dripped out of this orange. Things like that were almost commonplace. So their haunting was increasing since Pyro went there, and we were urged to come back. When we came back, Roger Perrin, he's a very rugged guy, he was starting to get nervous because he was waking up with scratches on his forearms, and it didn't look like he had inflicted them on himself. And Carolyn, Oh, the mother? Now, she was already a slender woman. She looked like she'd lost 30 pounds. Like, what has happened to this attractive woman? She's wasting away. She was like 30. She was 30 years old at the time. So we had another team meeting back at the college and decided it would be a good idea to call upon Ed and Lorraine Warren, with whom I was acquainted. Donna and I were. It's not that we felt we were in over our heads, quite the contrary. We just thought it would be a professional touch to benefit from the experiences of the famous Warrens. Well, quasi-famous at that time. And Ed Warren, I remember being on the phone with him, and he volunteered to come to the house. He said, Lorraine and I will come out there. So, we can't pass this up. And I told Ed on the phone, I said, now I understand we're going to be working on this case together. Oh, absolutely, said Ed. And I said, you'd like our case notes, our file? Yes, send them right over. So in September of 1973, Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren came to the house, and I greeted them at the door. A very pleasant meeting. I introduced Ed and Lorraine to Roger and Carolyn Perrin. So it's not like you see in the movie The Conjuring. And Carolyn proceeded to give us a tour of the house, and I have a photograph that proves I was there. In later years, as in 40 years later, with the release of The Conjuring movie, Lorraine Warren denied that we were ever there. She said, Ed and I were the sole investigators there on the scene. But no, actually, Pyro called them in. So we had a nice evening, and they began their... Well, theirs was not an investigation. It was an intercession. They were convinced that the house was haunted by the demon witch Bathsheba Sherman, whose name is mentioned in the movie. So, who was an actual historic person. She was a bit eccentric, but no witch. Never did violence. So the house was supposedly haunted by the demon witch Bathsheba Sherman. And then I thought we were going to have a very good joint investigation. Here we are working with the Warrens, with whom I lectured. Well, I didn't hear from Carolyn Perrin for another, I think it was 16 days, a little over 2 weeks. So we Pyro members, we felt that maybe the investigation had gotten heavy, and Ed and Lorraine are concentrating on helping these people, or maybe it was successfully resolved. They didn't need a paranormal team in there anymore. In any event, we made up our minds we weren't going to hear from the Perrins. And this is a lady who had been calling me every day, Carolyn Perrin. Well, finally, Carolyn, 16 days later after that tour and introducing them to the Warrens, Carolyn did call me, and she apologized for not getting back to me, not calling me. She told me that Ed and Lorraine Warren had advised them, Roger and her, that they could be of no help unless they were the only paranormal people on the scene, the only paranormal investigators. They said, we were just a bunch of college kids. We couldn't do any good, so it had to be just them. And Carolyn apologized. That was, although I had been to the house a few times afterwards, that was the last time I would see Carolyn Perrin or Roger Perrin for the next 40 years. Precisely 40 years.
You got ripped off, and I got to cut you off right there because we do have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour, because we're going to get into some major stories, major everything in regards to demonology, demons, what it's like to deal with the more evil side of the paranormal. We got Merle in studio for Ghosts of the Great White North. Our special guest tonight from Duo Demonology, we have James Anito and Carl Johnson. We're in for a really good treat tonight, a paranormal story, so let's get your ghosts on tonight on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're all clear here, guys. We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
That's good stuff. Yeah. You're a good storyteller, man. Good storytelling there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to encapsulate it. I mean, I could have taken an hour just to tell that story, but I'm, trying to tell it succinctly and, as it happened. So,
yeah. I
don't vilify the Warrens. It was not kosher that they claim jumped us, but it was so long ago. I don't have any emotion associated with it. But at the time, it was disappointing. Well, we did have a good experience with the parents in that time. We were investigating their home.
Right.
So, yeah. What I didn't like was that Ed and Lorraine, Ed was stricken and actually had passed on by the time of the release of The Conjuring. But Lorraine totally denied that there were any other investigators there, so she could have at least given us credit for being there. I mean, I can honestly say, were it not for myself, this franchise, I don't know if I'd say this on the air, but this franchise of The Conjuring.
Well, we are on the, just so you know,
Annabelle,
just a reminder to you, we are live on YouTube, right? I don't know if you want to say that or not, but.
I'll say it, yeah, that's okay.
All right.
I can honestly say that if we're not, and this has been no hint of hubris, it's just fact, were it not for myself, that franchise wouldn't exist. The Conjuring 2, The Haunting in Enfield, Annabelle, and the Warrens would not have quite the fame and acclaim that they have now were it not for little Carl in Rhode Island, But that was not my aim. I just wanted to perform an investigation with my team. And it was started off as an effective investigation. I didn't know that 40 years later it would become a movie. I probably would have taken a lot more pictures had I known and be more careful with them. But as there's a Polaroid picture of myself there next to Donna, case manager, and next to Donna is Lorraine Warren, the beautiful Lorraine Warren is there, getting her initial tour of the Conjuring house. And in the foreground is a kind of washed out image of Carolyn Perrin guiding us all to the house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that was my introduction to the paranormal investigation in a home.
Awesome.
It was Harrisville farmhouse.
Are you guys having fun yet?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it's getting there. Now, how long are you going to be on for? Because James has to get up for work, but he's going to tough it out for the next
2.5 hours.
It's 2.5 hours?
Yeah, we got 2 hours left. 2 hours left. We're down to 2 hours.
Okay, I think we can do it. I think we're going to do it.
Absolutely. I hope so. I hope so.
Energy drinks and all that.
Oh, yeah. My heart's beating like I can't wait.
You got that right. You got that right.
You don't have a visual because we're so good looking.
I would say the same thing about Merle, but, how good looking you are.
James is the glamour guy of our group, though.
Yeah, hold on. Let's take a look at here. Where's James here? Hold on here.
This will clarify us.
Hold on. We're gonna do a judgment call here. It's your judgment. Look at that. Nice young. That's some good chin hair you got going on there, James. Not gonna lie. Chin hair. Solid manly chin hair.
Told you about him.
I get you there. All right, we've got about just under 2 minutes here, guys, before we're all going to come back. Merle, there's nothing I can do about the delay. I got to get another headphone jack for the board here. That's my issue. I apologize. Unless you can find a slot in the back there, that maybe? Or are you just too lazy, you don't want to?
I looked yesterday.
Yeah, but... Merle.
Merle, did Merle settle it?
Merle.
Good, solid, manly name right there, Merle.
Yeah, Merle.
It's a great name.
You're full of personality tonight, Merle. Full of personality.
He's cogitative tonight. He's thinking of this out. He's reflective.
Merle.
We had pizza. For dinner tonight, so it's kind of like we're all in slow motion right now.
Pizza will weigh you down like an anchor.
I know. I had a nap before the pizza and a nap after the pizza.
It's spongy, that's why.
Yeah.
I'm not waking up your neighbors, am I?
All right, guys, 40 seconds. 40 seconds.
Okay, we'll be there for you.
And, don't want that. And final commercial. Hey, everyone, I want to say thank you to everybody on YouTube so far hanging on out with us. And thank you to Bigfoot Michigan Rob and the Scoreboard Lounge for the super chat. We love to woo with you. You know that. And Major Lee with a double shot there of super chat. We really do appreciate that, Major Lee. Remember, a good way to support this show. Give us a thumbs up and do a little shopping at the SOR Vault on our website. Here we go with the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Want to remind you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We got Merle here. Merle's in the house for Ghost of the Great White North. He's been hanging out the last couple of days, heading home tomorrow, but we figured we'd have a strong show here tonight with Big Bad Merle for Ghost of the Great White North. And we got in a couple of really cool dudes here in the dual demonology team of James Anito and Carl Johnson. We call him Demon Hunter Carl because we now have Demon Hunter Carl to join Human Carl and to join the Alien Carl.
You got quite a few Carls.
That's a lot of Carls. A plethora of Carls. Plethora of Carls. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Well, it's good to be back. We're with you.
All right.
Where did we leave off? We were talking about the Perrin household.
Yeah, finish that bad boy up.
Yeah. Well, I hope our listeners, I hope I don't have to back up and reiterate. But so we brought the Warrens into the Perrin house. Didn't hear from Carolyn for 3 weeks, and just under 3 weeks. And then she called me and told me that the Warrens were handling the case, and they said they could have nobody else there. That was their rule. So we wish them well. What happened next was a seance, an ill-advised seance, I will say, was arranged. This is very true. A seance was conducted at what became known as the Conjuring House decades later. The house on Rontop Row, the farmhouse, was conducted there on October 30th, 1973. In the movie, the events are portrayed as taking place in 1971, but this was 1973. And present at that seance was a medium, a friend of Lorraine Warren's, and a priest. Had to have a priest there, of course, for whatever reason, and make sure that things didn't go wrong. Well, they did. And Lorraine and Ed and Roger and Carolyn Perrin. Now, Roger came home and realized they had been set up for a seance. They didn't even clue the Perrins in that they were going to do this, but begrudgingly, Roger figured he had to go along with it to see if it would do any good, to stop the hauntings in their house. Because obviously the Warrens weren't being effective with quelling the paranormal activity in the farmhouse. Farmhouse was built in 1736, by the way, so it had time to accrue a lot of memories. The groundwork for the farm was actually... It started being built in 1690, so the structure had been around for a long time. So, flashing ahead to October 30th, 1973, Lorraine's, observing and kind of presiding over the seance, and they have a medium channeling. Well, at one point, susceptible Carolyn Perrin, the lady of the house, the mother, Carolyn was taken over by something. And she began to mutter in gibberish, in some language they couldn't decipher or understand. And after this went on for a time, they asked, "Who are you?" They have to say, "Are you Bathsheba?" Because it was assumed that the demon witch Bathsheba was the one that was controlling the household, the paranormal activity there. So Carolyn goes under. Then Carolyn, her body was shot out of her chair into the next room, which was then the kitchen, is now a parlor. Carolyn was thrown out of her chair. She's going about 15 feet away, and she was unconscious. People in the room thought she was dead. She was not responsive. So naturally, Roger Perrin, her husband, runs over to her. And to his regret, and unfortunately, Ed Warren blocked his way and said, "You must never touch the possessed." So this is the true story, not what you see in the movie. And Roger Perrin was very glad to retell this. So Ed's blocking his way, trying to keep him from touching his wife. Roger held up and punched him, socked him in the mouth, and Ed lost a tooth from that. And he just ordered them out of the house. He said, "That's it. No more paranormal people in this house. I've had it." But Carolyn recovered, of course, but And the Warrens never came back to that house. So it had a bad ending, actually. I won't say the Warrens didn't do any good, but I thought it was irresponsible of them to actually propose a seance and conduct it there. Now, supposedly, the story was that Carolyn wanted the seance, but I think it was Lorraine who suggested that. So, and that was the end of the Warrens' involvement with the parents. It ended acrimoniously, unlike you see. Now, my brother had stayed in touch with the Perrin family. They moved to Florida, and then Andrea, the oldest daughter, moved to Georgia, and she wrote a series of 3 books about her experience. They're called collectively House of Darkness, House of Light, because they had a good time there. And they're 10 years there. They were a loving and warm family. So then the parents come back, at least Roger and Andrea are interviewed on my brother's podcast show. And I said to my brother, why didn't you tell me the parents were in town? I would have loved to have seen them. I haven't seen them in 40 years. But my brother told me there was some discrepancy. There was some problem. Why he didn't want to tell me the parents were in town. I said, well, I'd like to hear about that. We didn't have any falling out. And that stuff's 40 years ago. Well, I did contact Andrea Perrin. Now, the problem was that the parents thought that I had snuck onto their property with some team of devil worshippers and eviscerated and killed 2 of their rabbits they kept outside in cages. I said, what? What? This is not like me. When I was 17 and 18 years of age, I was rescuing stray animals, and I couldn't have found my way to their house without GPS. But there was no GPS then. I didn't have a car to drive there then, and these atrocities with the animals occurred 6 months before we even met the parents or heard about them. So obviously, I could support that wasn't me who committed that act. It turned out it was a movie producer, who told Andrea that, and supposedly I had confessed my crime to Lorraine. So that was getting very bizarre. This is like cartoon stuff, And Andrea said, well, you really better protect yourself because you're going to be portrayed in that movie. So they're going to have somebody playing Carl in The Conjuring? What is this? But back then, the working title was The Warrens Files, but it was eventually became The Conjuring. So I had to send out a couple of letters, a couple of writs of cease and desist, because they were going to play me in a movie, and it wouldn't have been good. They might have spelled my name with a K instead of a C or something like that. There's ways to get away with that. And they say there's no such thing as bad publicity. Well, this would have been really bad. I would have spent the rest of my time with the paranormal lecturing and explaining. That wasn't me. I didn't do those things, because they were going to have the character playing me come on and kill an animal. They do have a scene in the movie The Conjuring where they find the dog dead. But that was based on an incident that happened before the parents even moved to the town of Harrisville, or the village of Harrisville in Burrillville. So even the movie had a bizarre origin by my perspective. And then Andrea made a personal appearance in Harrisville and answering questions about the upcoming movie. And she mentioned me favorably in her talk. And she gave me such a hug when I saw her. She said, don't worry about that nonsense. It's all been a lying sack of something awful. And the shows are different. Yeah, some of them encourage you to cuss, and I rarely do. And but that's what the producer, that's what she said about the producer. So from then on, I've had very good relations with the parents' family.
That's good.
I've seen them many times since. And I have numerous times been back to that house. The house in Harrisville, Rhode Island, is now owned by Corey and Jen Heinzen. Loving couple, very good friends of mine. And I'll tell you one more thing. I know this has gone on a long time telling about it, but there's just no succinct way to tell it other than what I'm saying. Well, there's a mirror there, a square mirror in the parlor room, and I said, by gum, that looks like the same mirror that the parents had hanging there. All those years ago. I bet you that's the same mirror. Now, this is June of 2019, just a day after the closing. The Heinz had made the closing on the house, and they invited me to come over. And I was there with my friend Elise, and I thought I'd look in that mirror. This is true. I looked in that reflection. I saw myself as I appeared when I was 18 years of age. I had my same red polo shirt on that I was wearing that day, and my reflection moved with me, but my reflection was moving as I did. Still, I had long blonde hair, and I looked 18. I was going to call Elise in to see that, but I just figured by the time Elise gets there, this illusion or mirage or manifestation, whatever it was, will have stopped. But I had a chance to observe that for a full minute. What a bummer it was when I looked in the mirror in the bathroom, and I was like, no, I'm really that much older. But I got to contrast it. I saw what I looked like when I was 18. I can't explain it, if it was a time slippage or just something about that mirror. But it was an eerie experience.
For sure.
So I've been there to investigate several times since.
We have James Anito and Carl Johnson on here tonight. Dual Demonology on with Merle and Ghost of the Great White North. We continue on here, gentlemen. Let's get into the whole story about the parents. Now that everything is over and everything has been solved and everything it seems back to normal, has that calmed a lot of energy for you and really brought some peace?
It's a peaceful setting, that house. James and I have been there and don't feel any hostility. Actually, if anything, an eerie feeling of being watched. Having said that, the same phenomena that was occurring there in 1973, like that black thing that I saw issuing down the hallway, and the bumps in the wall, the footsteps, that's going on now. I don't think a week goes by where they don't have something like that. Sometimes a book will fly out of the shelf. It's spooky, but it's not enough to drive them out of their new home. They purchased the house knowing it was a haunted house. That was part of their motivation. But yeah, the same things are still going on there. And I'll tell you, if the house, I think the house has become something of a sentient living organism with all the memories that have been contributed to that house. And if you're a decent person and you're interested in the house will give you a favorable experience. People say they feel good there. They may see some weird and hear some weird things, but they say they have a good feeling about it. People who are kind of degrading or, denying that there was a haunting there, or come wanting to do a seance or something, those people usually feel sick to their stomachs and have to leave early. If somebody has like an exploitative or hostile attitude, the house doesn't seem to want them. It spits them out. So I think the house has a personality. But James and I have, fine. Not a problem. I feel warm and welcome and nostalgic when I go to that house and visit Jen and Corey.
Merle?
I'm going to switch gears here for a little bit. I'd like to know the difference between demons versus negative spirits.
Well, that's a great question. Basically, Carl kind of gave a good tribute to a negative spirit and demonic haunting. We wouldn't say what they dealt with was negative. Maybe it was some sort of phenomenon we don't understand. But a negative spirit is, of course, a earthbound spirit, somebody that was once living, that is now deceased. And if they were mean when they were alive, now they are mean when they are deceased.
That carried over.
And it carried over. So they are negative in that form and fashion. They were once physical. They once breathed air. They lived a daily life. And then there's some forms of negative entities, of course, that were never beings, such as jinns, that could be either malevolent or benevolent. But if we look at the common root of negative spirit as an earthbound spirit and a demon would be something that never walked the plane of existence of Earth, this physical plane.
In human form. It's never walking like a person.
Yeah, they are pure spiritual beings, of course, rooted in a lot of religious faith, Christianity, Hinduism. Demons have been around in human civilization for a very, very long time, rooted in belief systems. So these pure spirit forms, which are commonly connected to angels or fallen angels, are these beings that fell from the grace in temptation, and now are these evil beings that wish to tempt humanity and, of course, do evil biddings. So that is the difference between a demon and a negative spirit. And now basically to figure out which one's which, there's different factors and different forms. I've always felt to the degree, and Carl and I have been doing this for a combined 60 plus years. Carl 47 and myself 15.
So I have the majority of
those. But we have similar amount of experiences in the cases that we've dealt with that were demonic, and we kind of give a statistical value to it because, everybody thinks everything's a demon nowadays. Carl's, with the 47 years of experience, has dealt with 5 demonic cases.
In all that time, 5 cases that I adjudicated to be demonic.
Yeah, and with me, 15 years, only 5 cases as well. So it really shows you the large number of cases that aren't demonic compared to the ones that we are brought in and we determined to be. So a lot of those cases could be, in the largest sense, where they weren't demonic, could be negative spirits, could be psychological ailments, could be psychokinetic forces at play, so many other different formulas. So demonic is a small spectrum of what we've actually dealt with, even though it is a large spectrum of what we study.
Right.
But so there is a huge difference. But I think one of the leading factors of where Carl and I have dealt with something demonic, where we really contribute the difference between negative spirit and something demonic, is the presence in that atmospheric when you are in that location. You hit that location, you can feel it, regardless if you're clairsentient, clairaudient, if you have any ability of intuition or sixth sense, if you believe you do. If you are truly, in fact, in the presence of a demonic entity, your being will feel that. Your chemical reactions in your brain will shoot to fight or flight, regardless of who you are. These forces are so suppressive, so manipulative, but they're also very strong, much older than we are, and even though we still don't understand to the T what a demonic entity is, it's, like I said, something that's been talked about in human civilization and in belief for a very, very long time, even to like Mesopotamian times. That's a very long time ago. So there's differences, but deciphering those differences are, of course, the things that Carl and I do as demonologists, determine and try to figure out and dissect and, of course, look at the issues at hand. And anytime there is a demonic force at play, there was some level of trauma involved with the individual. So there's these things that we look at, these things that we dissect.
Yeah, hear what James said, that there's always been, in my experience, and I believe in James, whenever there's been a demonic manifestation centering on a human subject, there has been some level of trauma inflicted in their past or some seriously unresolved conflict, because the demon needs an invitation to come in anyway, and so something has to be a little unbalanced. Now, there should be rules against this, but there aren't, apparently. My definition, which James agrees with, so our definition of demonology is the systematic study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits. Mm-hmm. Now, an applied demonologist, such as are we, will actually go out into the field and meet these people and try to assess the problem and deal with it. If we can travel there, usually we get notified by situations that are pretty far.
Mm-hmm. We have 4 minutes before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. We have James Anito and Carl Johnson joining Merle on Ghost of the Great White North. I'm here too, and I'm the host guy, Dave. Gentlemen, when you start looking at demons, okay, this is probably one of the most polarizing parts of paranormal investigation. And there are people out there who say, I've been investigating 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, and I've only ever run into one demon or two demons, or they saw one hitchhiking down the highway, carrying, a hobo's pack or something along those lines. All right. So how real is this phenomena?
I think there is a grim reality to it. Yes, they are. You may interpret them differently, and they're difficult to define, but they're real. The demons. The difference between a human spirit, a negative one, although such as even a poltergeist, a very active spirit, and a demonic force is you'll know the demon with time. It will reveal itself because people get a very sick feeling going into the household where there is a demonic presence, and the children will be, if there are children present, they will be frightened. I think usually often the demon presents itself as a friendly spirit, like if there are children involved. I remember one case in Brooklyn, New York, and the child was a 14-year-old girl, and she, this is a different one. This is the one in Brooklyn, because I did deal with a possession case with a 14-year-old boy. But this 14-year-old girl, it actually started when she was 13, and she said the nice lady came into her room and smiled at her. But after a few visitations, this nice lady turned bad, and her eyes turned all black, no whites in them, and she smiled, and she had pointed teeth. She had an evil smile. Okay, now it's when the parents start seeing that apparition that we are called in. That's what was happening in that house in Brooklyn, New York. So, at first it may be difficult to tell if you got apparent paranormal activity in a household. It's moving dishes around, sliding out chairs. If it's something more sinister and inhuman, give it a couple of weeks. It'll let you know.
Yeah, and usually it's in the factor of it finding the person that it can manipulate. It can affect the most individual with the most trauma, ability for it to invite.
Interesting. There always seems to be a target, a person that's targeted.
So, but in that same form of fashion, it's for people that haven't experienced it or have in a minimal sense. We always hope for people never to experience it. As demonologists ourselves, we would think we are jumping and joying when we get a case that could be equivocal demonic backgrounds. But in that same sense, it's not the case. Carl and I are glad when we don't get a true demonic case, because it's just like an onion. It's like trying to get each layer and cut each layer to understand what the root cause is, why there's this effect to this situation. So, for people that have never dealt with it, we hope you never do. But if you do, you'll understand the reasons that we say that, where we're not jumping for joy, we're not going in cheerleading, saying demon, demon, yay, So I know some people want to experience it. I wanted to. I didn't believe in it when I first got involved into this, but reality slapped me in the face. I eventually got what I was looking for, and that happened, and it occurred, and unfortunately, I learned the hard way, but there was resolution to that case into some form, and resolution for myself. So, some people will never experience it.
It is. Oh, Merle, go ahead. No, you came close to the microphone.
I just wanted to know, when you said that that's how you got your slap in the face, what was your turning point to getting into it?
You know what? Let's hold right there. I just noticed the clock. We're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We're talking demons tonight. Spaced Out Radio. Merle is here from Ghosts of the Great White North, along with Duo Demonology, James Anito, Carl Johnson. We're going to continue finding out about a slap across the face at the hands of a demon. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio.
Demon slaps.
All right, guys. We are clear right now. You guys can talk away. I just got to step away for a minute here to go take my dogs outside because I have a studio in my house. And I will. You guys can chat with the YouTube crowd and just tell them a story or something. We'll be right back in about a minute.
Okay, we'll stick with you, of course.
Look at what I find. Keep getting haunted. What's that thing?
I can't read it. It says cinnamon.
It says Davina Rush.
Davina Rush.
I know, it's the haunted pen.
Wow, you still got one of them, huh? That's one of our business pens. That's like a business card.
Oh, yeah. I found it. I'm like, oh, gosh.
Hmm.
All right, guys, I'm back. I'm just doing checking some tech stuff here.
All right,
Okay, here
welcome
we are.
back.
Welcome back.
Do you hear what I hear?
What's that? Oh, God. I gotta throw this away into this maybe. Well, my shoe keeps coming untied and I'm not even walking around.
All right, we're going to try something different here. Hold on.
Okey-dokey.
All right, you guys want to talk for a quick sec?
1, 2, 3. ABC.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Shut the door.
ABC.
All right, perfect.
1, 2, 3.
Do you want to turn this one down?
Huh?
Do you want to kill it?
Yeah, I'll kill that one. All right. Let's just do this. Right. And I can turn my headphones up. Put them back. All right, let's try this. See if this works. All right. Merle, are you happy now?
I am happy. I'm happy that I can hear and there's no delay, hopefully.
Shove that microphone in your mouth.
Is that better?
Much better.
Hold that. It's going to Megan.
Hold on, let me push my glasses up. All right, gentlemen, we got about just over a minute left.
Sounds good. Then we can talk about some demon slaps.
Demon Slaps coming up next on Spaced Out Radio.
Getting demon slappy now.
Yeah, it could be a shirt. Satan with the hands. Slap you.
I could catch on.
Yeah.
Works for me.
It's going to be sponsored by Spaced Out Radio, right?
Of course. All right, let's see if that works any better. All right, thank you to Bigfoot Michigan Rob, everybody at Scoreboard Lounge. Don't forget to tip Brittany. She deserves it over there. And turn the woo up a little bit, gentlemen, because we got some good stuff coming up. And remember, you can do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. Here we go with the second hour of Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Kicking off the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Gigantomachy. Gigantomachy is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we continue on with Ghosts of the Great White North. Merle's in studio tonight, hanging on out with us, and I'm going to tell you, he's got really tight hair going on tonight. Tight, large, and strong, Merle.
Exactly.
He's a man of many words. Man of many words. And we got special guests tonight from Duo Demonology, and I highly suggest you check out their website, demonology.org. We have James Anito and Carl Johnson, Demon Hunter Carl, not to be confused.
Demon Hunter Carl.
Yeah, not to be confused with Human Carl or Alien Carl. Can't do that.
No.
No, we don't want to do that. But, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. We really do appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Definitely. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, you were going to talk about what it's like to be slapped across the face by a demon. Now, we're not talking my ex-mother-in-law here, are we?
Well, we could be for sure.
Don't want to demonize her either.
So I wasn't, of course, physically, like I said, these things are pure spirit, so I was not physically slapped in the manner of, like, if Carl slapped me right now, awake, of course. And if, in that sense, this case was in Salem, Massachusetts. I did not believe in demons before this case. I was a person that got involved in the paranormal field because of my disdain for God, my search and answer within the study of theology, if God existed or not, and within those confines of being young and understanding literature and reading such things as evolutionism, anthropological studies, civilizations, and archaeology studies. I got interested in what happens life after death. I think that was one of the biggest nuances, emphasis on if I could figure out what God is, because we always talk about ghosts and spirits. You know, as a child, you raised up as Scooby-Doo. Of course, they always solved what it was. It was never a paranormal situation.
Right.
Literature such as Charles Dickens. He was a acclaimed paranormal investigator with the Ghost Club. He always wrote about it. There was always some involvement within his stories. Charles Babbage, the father of computers, another paranormal investigator with Ghost Club. So a lot of smart people were involved in understanding if there was life after death. Even Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, and the list goes on and on and on. So I thought, even, of course, young and brash, that I could figure out what spirits were. If ghosts did not exist or spirits did not exist, then does that disprove God? So basically, that was my entryway into the paranormal, because it was a physical study that you could do, that I've seen on television, which, of course, initiated was like Scariest Places on Earth and some other programs, of course, with Hans Holzer back in the heyday. And then, of course, with what Carl was on for the first 2 seasons, Ghost Hunters. And it was a really integral part of understanding the physicality to this, of course, the Warrens that Carl had talked about. So I never had believed in demons at that point. I had never come across something like that. I maybe had dealt with paranormal phenomenon that could have intrigued me, that I did believe that there could be a possibility that there is something life after death, but never came across this great evil that has always been talked about in dualism, angels versus demons and good versus evil. And I was always interested in Epicurus with Theodicies and the understanding of evil in the human civilization, with sending like Hamaratology. So to get involved in studying demonology and working with Carl 10 years ago as his tech manager with Beyond the Veil, we later, of course, parted ways for a little bit, but within those parting of ways,
no falling out,
no
just
falling
circumstantial.
Yeah, I came across a case in Salem, Massachusetts, and at that point, I did work with specialists. I would work with specialists such as psychotherapists and psychologists and psychiatrists, because even young and brash, I still knew that there could be ways of explaining human nature that could echo what looked like paranormal phenomenon. So I always would work with people. And there's this one case in Salem, Massachusetts, like Carl said, in Brooklyn, and a case in Providence he also dealt with. But this case was in Salem, Massachusetts. Of course, the wickedness is already known about the Witch City. There's so many movies talking about Halloween earlier, about Salem, Massachusetts. And so that was already intriguing. But the most intriguing part of that case was that instead of me calling upon a specialist within the psychological realm, it was a psychologist actually calling me in for my specialty, for my knowledge of demonic folklore, demonic lore, understanding of religion, and how people can react in the same form of demonic possession to what people in the DSM would call possession as a disorder. So I was called in because there was a lot of things that weren't right. There were a lot of situations of bilocation and other paranormal phenomenon going in this case. So they felt at need to bring somebody in with my abilities, which, of course, when you get that call, it takes you for a startle, because, like I said, you usually call these people in. There's always been that big debate of psychology versus theology, and what is real to what is not preternatural, what is preternatural to natural. So getting involved in that case, they had very startling experiences. There was this claim that this individual was possessed by some sort of force. A friend of mine who was a Buddhist monk had gone in previously to try to aid and do some, of course, rituals and mantras within that house, which it seemed to work for a little bit, but of course it just progressively got worse from that standpoint. So dealing with this situation, not only was this a one-time affair, it was enough for one time to me understanding this, because what I said earlier is the biggest difference of understanding what is negative to demonic is once I hit that property. I try not to go in there with acknowledgement of what is possible. I try to go in with a neutral mindset, because if you go in there expecting to expect something and get something, you trick yourself, and you go there wrongfully, and especially dealing with somebody's house and somebody's living arrangements. So I go in there with a neutral mindset to understand, okay, if I come across nothing, you can't be disappointed. And if I come across something, you might be startled, but you stand your ground, just like Carl did. Yeah. When the parents called him, he was known to stand his ground. That's why he was called, and his team was called. And of course, in his later situations. But such things as triangulation of the face occurred when this person would go under transient possession. He would go in fits of rage. His face would triangulate. His eyes would go fully black. He was able to out-wrestle two former bouncers that were there.
Hefty guys, right?
Two hefty guys, 350-pound plus, and was able to dislocate a shoulder and grasp onto me.
The subject was,
The subject was, and grab onto me. I had a set of rosaries that were specially made that were metallic, and I didn't realize later, but where he grabbed it, the metal tarnished at the grab points, and that was fascinating to me. But this person was able to speak Latin very fluently, and I'm an ordained minister. I was an ordained minister at that time. Now I'm clergy with the United States Catholic Church as a deacon. But my level of education of Latin was minuscule compared to his formation and his wording of it, and it was very influential. Like he was very well spoken at that point in those transient possessions. And of course, other languages were spoken that I could not tell you what they were, if not at all gibberish. But he threw a table at me while I was saying prayers. And mind you, there's many eyewitness accounts to this. But the biggest factor of why I believe it was demonic, beside all these situations, is that one of the things that I've always read in demonic literature, and of course heard from people such as Carl and other respected demonologists out in this field that are very well known, and of course from exorcists themselves, there is always repercussion afterwards, or even beforehand. There is some sort of a simulation of a demonic trying to influence and affect you from either coming or going to scare you away. And basically, at the end of that case, it really threw a wrench in a lot of people's friendships. That case caused upheaval. It caused attacking of certain individuals, people attacking me within that confines. It was a hot mess. So, but I definitely say it was a slap in the face, because I didn't believe in it. But the one thing it did for me is, instead of scare me away and run away like I should have, now I'm a dum-dum, of course, but what it did for me is actually made my faith stronger, because the things that I encountered, there was a medical professional there. There was these eyewitness accounts from people that have had a tremendous amount of experience in this field that were dealing with this case. So it was really eye-opening to me. It was a horrifying experience. I cannot lie and say I wasn't scared, but of course, when you're in that situation, if you're meant to do this work, you stand your ground and you do your best not to show it. But I, of course, was trembling. My whole body was shaking, and it'll be an experience that I'd never forget. And something I'm thankful that I experienced, but it really opened a can of worms. It sure did.
Yeah, it does that, because I think we're forever affected by this. I mean, I don't know if I'm traumatized by my experiences or if James is, but we're marked in a way. We remember it was vividly impressed upon us. And the late Ed Warren would say, once you are recognized by the demonic realm, they will always know you. Mm-hmm. They've got your number. They know you've seen them. They know you've encountered them. So you're always marked in that sense. That's what Ed Warren said, and I believe it.
Merle has a question for you guys.
Of course, certainly.
Have either of you guys had to deal with the same demon multiple times?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, and my answer is not that I know of.
Same, I would say not that I know of as well.
There may be something. Perhaps I am open to the strange and vague possibility that James has encountered some demonic force that I did, but they're not revealing themselves. I mean, I remember that in The Exorcist, where Father Merrin has encountered that demon before, and he knows it's his destiny to square off with the demon one last time.
Yeah.
And
surely the one last time, because he dies.
Because he dies in it, yes.
Yes.
In The Exorcist. Yeah, I would be absolutely fascinated by that. If I turned out there was some evidence to suggest that James and I were encountering the same thing, but at different times.
And of course, there have been other people involved in this field, predating Carl, or even still a part of the field in some form or fashion, that believe they have. But as far as myself or Carl, we do not believe or unknowingly know that if we dealt with the same. I've dealt with same entity of the Hatman nature, I do believe, but that's not demonic. But as far as the demonic aspect, I don't think so. But
yeah, my guess is not.
Yeah. Different characteristics of every time that I dealt with what I would call demonic, either in the level of possession, oppression, or infestation, there was similar characteristics and similar personality to the haunting. But of course, with the individual being different, there was a lot of differences. So it's hard to know unless you get a name, and to get a name, it's not as willy-nilly as people think it is. Everybody you hear about nowadays puts a ghost box on or puts a digital recorder down, and they're getting these names that you can openly read up in the Goetta or some demonology handbook, or such as Carl's like Shadow Realms, a demonology handbook. But there's these books, of course, but we got to remember these demonic entities start off as this peaceful, haunting, that exasperates and turns into something of a malevolent-based haunting once it's found its target. And the reason why it starts very small and well-natured and we're not here to harm you kind of thing is because of that invitation. They want you to open a line of communication. So it's not going to explicitly come out and say, my name's Val. It's going to say, my name's Bob or Uncle Bob, or it's gonna play off our emotions. So for people that get names so willy-nilly, you got to remember, yes, demons are intelligent, but they're also not going to be stupid enough to give their name because they don't want to be detected. The whole point is being in the shadows, laying darkness down to the light. Now, as a negative spirit, they are intelligent as well. We tend to believe them unless they are a ghost and they are a residual haunting. So, of course, if we use the word intelligence, where I think people escape from that ability of understanding what intelligence is, a negative spirit that's intelligent can use these names as a fear-mongering technique and as a joke. Or as the ability to deploy what they want in that situation. So, it's hard to understand if really what you've dealt with over a systematic amount of time, if it's the same entity, unless you are truly getting a name through a form of expulsion, like an exorcism, which Carl and I have ever really been part of as well. So. Because that's an exorcist job. We're not an exorcist. We're demonologists. We're assessors. We determine. We're
determine, evaluate,
yeah.
Sometimes adjudicate, rarely diagnose, but we can apprise and advise people.
Definitely.
Merle here has a haunted object, allegedly, right in front of us. It's not haunted, Merle?
No, the story behind this object, I actually brought it in from my truck. It's kind of a weird story. I've been talking to a person who can detect haunted objects, and she was talking to me how there's an object in my possession that I have acquired over the past few months from Mexico or South America. And I had a bell ring off in my head saying, oh, crap. And one of our team members had bought a tiny little alpaca made of alpaca hair and hide, which is from South America, at a very haunted location where I actually was choked before at the little flea market they were having. So that's about it right now. Under investigation.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird looking. I'll show it to the camera on YouTube. It doesn't feel good. So can demons attach themselves to objects to make them haunted or demonic?
The jury's still out on that. I think so. Not with a strong influence, but I don't believe that somebody will pick up a haunted doll or sit in a haunted chair and they're going to become possessed. They can leave a resonance, kind of an influence. It's something like embedding information into a computer chip or a flash drive. That antiquated technology now. It's more like they leave their impression without being there. And somebody can strike a responsive chord, especially somebody who's sensitive to such impressions. They pick up the object and, they can get something from it. I don't particularly dread that. Like there's the infamous doll, Annabelle. Now, Annabelle is kept in a case. It's the Warrens Museum, now curated by and owned by Tony Sparrow, the Warrens' son-in-law. And if somebody, the display case is glass and it says, do not open or do not touch. Positively do not touch or open. Now, if somebody was playing around and they pulled that doll out of the display case and tossed it to me, and I caught it, I'd say, don't be a jerk, but I don't, maybe within 10 years I'd back into it with a fire hydrant, you don't know. But I wouldn't be particularly upset by that. However, if I went as far as to open that case myself and take the doll out to prove it's harmless, then I might create some kind of an impression in my mind.
Yes, definitely.
I wouldn't want to do that, because if I have to go as far as to defy it and demonstrate that, then I must believe in it to some degree.
Yeah, you put your the intent in the objects. Like for non-demonic objects that have attachment. Usually the word attachment, because people misuse the word possession when it comes to items. Possession only can occur to people. So, these attachments is like Carl said, this energy left over. If specifically in a spot with a human spirit, maybe if it was like somebody that died and they were very connected to that object in life, there could be a form of fashion. There's some still connectivity with that object in death. If of course spirits and ghosts truly do exist, beyond the nature of theory, which is not fact, of course. So it's possible. I've dealt with items. Our good friend John Zaffis deals with items. He's the haunted collector. So wasn't the Warrens. They have their museum, and I had the pleasure to work with Tony Spera and Esper, and was able to bless the Warren Museum and be part of premiere of Annabelle Comes Home. So I've been in the presence of Annabelle and a lot of those objects, and of course they routinely bless the property and bless the location. But the one thing too is, in my belief, is if you bless a location, you're ridding any attachment to those objects at that point in time, in my opinion. So even if you're binding them and you're blessing it, you're binding it and then you're blessing it. So that blessing should neutralize the connection to these objects. So to me, I can walk in the museum, and other people will have different accounts to maybe walk in John's museum or Tony Spera's museum or the Warren Occult Museum, whatever you like to call it, and have that impression. But I feel a lot of the times that those people have those impressions is that they go in with those mindsets of, oh, there's negative objects in here, there's demons in here. But I've walked into these locations, and I've been face to face with possessed individuals, and I've felt the most dread in my life. Most people that will never ever deal with. And I walk in these places like I could eat candy and watch a movie and just sing positive Beatles songs in these places. So with these objects. So to me, there's nothing evil about it. But of course, also in the same token, like Carl said, I won't willy-nilly pick up the object to provoke the situation, because I have respect. You got to be respectful.
Gentlemen, hold on right there. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We got Carl, we got James, we got Merle. Ghosts of the Great White North on Spaced Out Radio continues right after this.
Water?
All right, there we go.
No, I'm okay.
We're clear.
Sounds good. Hopefully we're giving you a good show, guys.
Oh, yeah. I would... you guys are doing great, man. Doing great.
Do you want us to tell some more spooky stories?
Yeah, man.
We are possessed right now by demons.
Yeah, tell me how possessed you are right now.
We're just well-mannered. We've got it under control.
Are you sure you're not Canadian demons? Polite, well-mannered?
Hey, we're not Canadian, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
What they say.
Uh-huh. Let's see here.
I could go for some Canadian bacon right now, though.
I could just go for bacon in general. It's a good universal staple.
Any bacon, anytime.
Merle likes a good piece of bacon.
We'll have a good thick cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's totally different. Isn't your Canadian bacon in the form of like a shape of a ham, like a little small spiral ham or something like that? Isn't that what you guys call Canadian bacon over there? Is that just American?
Does anybody even eat Canadian bacon up here?
I think our grandmas do.
Maybe.
My grandma's do.
You can't find it.
No, like it's a kind of a specialty Canadian thing. They put like I think it's like a cornbread crust on the outside of it. But no, normal Canadians eat normal North American bacon. Usually maple.
Universal bacon. That's good to hear. We all thought the world was in a crappy place, but in reality, bacon is universal, and that means universal love.
And we don't live in igloos.
No igloos? Ah, no. Man, you just blew out my whole expectations of Canadians.
And where I come from, there's rarely any snow.
You suck.
You know what? You know why ideal opinion of a Canadian is I love the show Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, yeah.
It's a strong show.
Strong show. I actually got to go on stage with the late Mr. Leahy and Ricky one night in Vancouver. And I got to host them for like an hour on stage.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
I love Bubbles, man. Bubbles is my favorite. Tinkering, always tinkering.
Oh, yeah. Bubbles is awesome. Bubbles is awesome.
There's a episode. It was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen. It just hit me a certain way. It's Ricky and his father. They're driving in a car, and this happened, but they kept it part of the show, and their reaction. But they're driving, and the dad's on the passenger side, and they hit this tree, and their face is just the funniest expression, because you know it's real, like they actually did that and they caught it. So it was just priceless to me. It was just something I will always remember, part of like entertainment like that. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
I gotta introduce you to Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, you have mentioned it to me.
Yeah.
Of course, this is not based on reality. I mean, I don't think there are any real life counterparts or similarities. Are there?
But to Bubbles, there's a lot of similarities to Bubbles.
Okay.
There's a couple of Bubbles floating around in Canada, that's for sure.
I got one right beside me right now.
You looking in a mirror?
You kidding me with this hair? No.
Kind of look like Bubbles.
No, my hair looks fantastic tonight.
You both wear glasses.
Yeah.
Looks nice in the still picture.
Mm-hmm. All right. We have just over 90 seconds here, guys.
Nice.
Okay. Now it's 90 seconds.
I got a good question for you, top of the hour.
Oh, Merle's going to come out with a question.
I'll say more than one word.
Yeah.
It better be a zinger.
He's actually going to expand his question to 4 words here, people. 4 words.
Because I like these guys. They'll maybe get 5.
No. Where is this rebellion coming from, Merle?
Are you a demon in the closet?
I may be.
But then again, so are the demons. Yeah, share some characteristics, some of the positive traits.
You got that right.
Who knows? There might be a video at the end of this of us vomiting pea soup.
Oh, that's always pleasant.
I
That's always pleasant.
Love
right
a good
there.
levitation as well.
Yeah, if we could get some levitation, that would be great.
Yes,
Good call of the levitation.
We will enact transvection for you guys. Some witching levitation.
Appreciate that. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. You know what I forgot to do tonight, Merle? I forgot to do a thought of the day today. Because we were on such a tight schedule. I forgot to type it in. There will be no thought of the day today.
That's your first time in years.
Yeah. Totally forgot. Last commercial.
Throw one out.
Thank you, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Scoreboard Lounge, Brittany. Make sure you tip her with a plethora of dollar bills tonight. And a big thank you to Major Lee for a couple of super chats as well. Great supporting this show. Make sure you hit that thumbs up if you don't mind, and that subscribe button if you're new. Here we go with the next half hour of the show right now. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Dave Scott here, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Got Merle right beside me for Ghosts of the Great White North. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Ghosts of the Great White North happens here once a month where we talk everything paranormal with my good buddy Merle. High and tight hair. Almost military type. Almost.
Not quite, but close.
Not like mall cop type. Yeah, there we go. Hey? He don't like that. He don't like that. You should see him grinding his gears at me right now. But we are talking demonology tonight on Ghosts of the Great White North. From Duo Demonology, demonology.org, we have James Anito, Carl Johnson. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, our pleasure. We're here. We're here with you.
And we're having a good time.
Yes.
We're glad that you're having a good time. That's what this is all about, is having fun, talking about these amazing topics that we get to do and deal with on a daily basis. Merle, you had a big bad question for these guys.
Dave,
We're ready.
I hope you have a bad sleep tonight and tomorrow.
For what?
Your words, they hurt people.
Wow.
You hurt people.
Wow. I'll publicly apologize for calling you a mall cop.
You just wanted to say it again, and not a mock-up. Anyhow, so my question comes down to Ouija boards. You mentioned The Exorcist last half hour, but
Yes.
so Ouija boards, they're kind of like, I explain them because you know how people poo-poo the Ouija boards all the time because they're going to bring in demons. 1-800-DEMON on a Ouija board.
Zozo!
Exactly. But then you have these same people going out and whipping out their spirit boxes, and they're like, "Oh, it's different, bro." It's different.
I like where you're going with this, Merlin.
So-
good stuff.
I've been investigating for a long time, and in my opinion, you guys will probably share the same opinion based on how you've been talking tonight. They're the same thing. One is more like a digital, and one is more of an analog.
Well, what is
ahead,
this,
Carl.
When is a seance not a seance? When you call it something else.
Exactly.
Now, there is a similarity. The one would cite the difference with the spirit box and a Ouija board is that with a Ouija board, it's the physical contact. You're surrendering part of your body to the impulses of a spirit. It's a spirit or from the spirit world. You're more detached from it when it's a spirit box. They are still forms of spirit communication. And in the rudiments, they are the same.
There's no
Ouija
caller
boards,
ID.
They don't bother me. They don't intimidate me. They're just a parlor game. I mean, somebody can get into tricky situations with them. If they start relying on what the Ouija tells them and, say, oh, I shouldn't go out today. I shouldn't cross the street. The Ouija says I shouldn't. If you get into that kind of relying on that prognostication, then it's tricky. Then it's freaky. But normally they don't bother me. But, yeah, it's just different means. People want it. Well, the researchers, the aficionados, they want to communicate with spirits. It's something remarkable and amazing. You're talking to a discarnate entity when you talk to a spirit, something without a physical body. So naturally, that's fascinating. And I think if somebody's using a Ouija board or using that spirit box, there's not a lot of separation there. There is some. It's a little more personal when you're using a Ouija board because you're relying on impulses from one's fingertips,
So you get ideomotor response where you maybe won't get that with the spirit box. There's more ability for a false positive on a Ouija board than there is a spirit box, in my opinion, too, because you don't know when you're actually moving something. Your brain can shut off. Like, your knowledge of you moving the planchette, even though you are moving the planchette. There's been scientific studies on this.
You can kind of will it to go where you're going. But sometimes I get downright surprised. I didn't anticipate an answer from a spirit board, a Ouija board, and it, came through. Like it's somebody's driver's license or something like that. So that can be a little surprising. When I say experiment, I have used a Ouija board, but only experimental. In other words, I don't. Now I could
like
lose
marijuana
my badge for this, but I experiment with them.
Yeah. I necessarily don't play with the Ouija board, and maybe in my younger days of being involved in this field, I would have had a different response. I would have been a little bit more gullible to think that the Ouija board has some gateway to hell. But in reality, why I don't necessarily use it in any form of fashion is I understand the history. I also understand that it is a game, it is a toy, and it can be used as a way of communication because guess what? You're putting a board down, you're putting a planchette down, and if you ask something to move it, if these things do exist, it could move the planchette and spell out something while you use a recorder or a spirit box and you're expecting an answer. Same thing with putting a cat ball on the floor. Move the cat ball so you see the lights go off. It's all the necessary ways of form of communication. And I think any time, regardless if it's a Ouija board, which I think is more of a parlor game, even though there could be responses that come from it. It's the way of communication that is the dangerous thing. Of course, Carl and I do so, but we also understand that there is a level of uncertainty and a danger to communicating with something that you can't see. So regardless of what it is, a Ouija board, a spirit box, or a digital recorder, or any EMF devices that you place on the floor, if you attempt communication and start asking personal questions or questions that revolve around something, there is that introduction of invitation of communication.
Yeah.
So there's always dangers within that. So, the Ouija board gets touted for what it is because of the movie The Exorcist. These divination tools have been used since very ancient times. A form of divination was widely used in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians were very they were like the ancient form of what spiritualism is nowadays. They were the ancient form of that.
Except to them, it was their religion.
It was. So in that form, it goes way back. But does it talk to a spirit more so than a recorder? Who knows? If the Ouija board's been around a lot longer, it's a possibility of an introduction that the spirit might feel more comfortable moving a planchette than trying to exasperate a voice. Use whatever it means necessary to communicate through a device. But in that same, this analogy I use is basically any tool you use. Like you can use a hammer for good. You can use a hammer to bang nails, or you can use a hammer to hurt somebody. So it's the intent in why you're using the object as well. So if you use a Ouija board in evil intent to conjure something up, you might get what you ask for. Or if you use it in a form of communication, in a form of investigation or experiment, you still might get something bad, but you're not having that intent to reach out to something bad either.
If that explains it in 1 million words or less,
Yeah, well, it's such a big misconception. Yes.
Yeah, it is misconceived in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I hope we've kind of at least responded to, if not answered your question about the difference between, or maybe even the similarities to, a spirit box, which scans radio frequencies,
yes,
and a Ouija board. One's just surrendering more of yourself, but they're both forms of spirit communication, and some people say that would be ill-advised.
Yeah, and they still have both false positives. You think about ionosphere, radio waves bounce back. So, you never know what you're getting through, unless, of course, it's an intelligent answer. Like you ask, what's your name? And of course, that's not going to be on the FM waves or AM waves. You get a name from a spot on a spirit box. Then that's definite. If you get a swear word on a spirit box, then that's definitive, because that's, unless of course we slip like we did earlier, it's not going to be on the airwaves. So there's things that you can look at, but a lot of the times you also have to understand that sometimes it's the gullibility, it's the form of fashion that you want to get something, audio pareidolia. So
you have that very well, actually.
You have
audio pareidolia.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you understand that as well, even using a spirit box.
Now, you guys have said you've observed people in a possessive state. Give us an example. Walk us through a case from start to end of your most what the F case.
That was an excellent way to put it, because that's how I felt during it. I was 21 years of age. I even then had somewhat of a reputation as a serious paranormal investigator. My previous residential case was the Harrisville house. So I knew a family. They were of Hispanic origin. The parents born in Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. And the subject was the 14-year-old boy. This is the boy now.
The boy, yeah.
And he was born in New York City. But he was exposed to that culture where they had embraced a belief in spiritual possession, that a spirit could take over one. Anyway, his trouble started apparently when he was 13 years of age, and he was walking through a cemetery in the west end of Providence, Rhode Island, what they call the Armory District, and he saw a woman's glove lying in the path before him, and he decided to take it home with him. Well, he was advised by his mother, I believe, or it was his grandmother actually, to bring that back, put it back where you found it. And He couldn't find the glove to return it. Now, we don't know if there was a connection between that incident and what ensued, but he started to be taken over by an invasive presence. His personality was changing. When I was alerted to this and they explained it to me, and he had been psychologically evaluated, I figured it was probably dissociative personality disorder, like split personality combined with epilepsy, maybe. Yeah, I was trying to think of some logical reason for why this was happening to him. I was invited to stay overnight, and somewhat reluctantly. I didn't want to say no to it either. I agreed. Okay, I'll stay and observe him. I don't have any credentials, but I'll watch. So I stayed overnight at their house. It was a 3-story house in Providence, Rhode Island, on Messer Street. And 1 a.m., 1 in the morning, I'm just starting to nod off on a sofa. I'm adjacent to the boy's bedroom. Okay, suddenly I heard this ear-splitting scream, and it was like somebody was being flayed alive. It wasn't even a normal scream. Never mind at 1 in the morning. So I fumbled for the wall switch and turned on the overhead light. Just in time to see that boy's door swing open, and his body was propelled out. It was like hands had thrown him out of there. He started to spin around on the floor. It just didn't make sense that a human body could do this on its own. He was being thrown around. Now, this was what we call PK phenomena, which, psychokinesis. His body was being banged into the wall, and it looked like a pool ball, like billiards. He's like hitting the wall, spinning around. Then he did something of a backwards flip and ended up on the sofa where I had been reclining. So I'm standing there transfixed. What am I going to do? Looking. And some of the other family members came in, having heard his scream. They came into this room on the 3rd floor. And then he turned, and I wished he hadn't. I was hoping he wouldn't, but he turned and looked at me. See, he had been jumping up and down on that sofa and flapping his hands, and this deep laughter came out of his throat. It was like, it was very, very deep and harsh. And then he turned on me. It was like looking into the face of hell. His eyes were wild. He looked feral. For the life of me, it looked as if his gums had receded, and just gave me this fierce look. Then he pounced on me and jumped toward me. So then I had to be galvanized into action. I held him down. I was trying to restrain him without injuring him or allowing him to injure me. That was my normal 200 pounds, but he pushed me right off. Then he came to his senses, but he was shivering and crying. I mean, the spirit seemed to recede, but this was no act. It was genuine. So it was decided that an expulsion would be performed the following week, an expulsion being a minor form of exorcism where we try to drive out the invading spirit. All right. We're down on the 1st floor of this family's house, and seated in a semicircle were all the participants, and I was in the center of that semicircle. A makeshift altar had been set up, and with a bowl of holy water, blessed water, and the boy was next to it, and there was clergy present. All right, when this procedure starts, and he's sitting there smiling but looking apprehensive. I don't know what to expect, of course. Then when we started the actual procedure, there were prayers offered, and then the floor shook, and everybody became totally silent. It was as if a truck was going by that road, or it was an earth tremor, but it was neither of those. The house groaned, the floor shook. And I knew we were dealing with something powerful. Okay, then it became silent again, except for the sound of my chair, with me in it, being pushed or pulled back against the wall. There you got the PK, the psychokinesis phenomenon again. I'm being pushed against the wall. I hardly had a chance to be startled before I realized nobody was pulling me back. My chair went all the way back across the wall, and as soon as it touched the wall, this boy fell to the floor, went through his gyrations, and was taken over. Okay, what ensued during the next hour and a half was just awful. Horrible things happening. And for the life of me, I just wanted to leave. I knew my car, my Dodge Datsun, was parked outside. I just wanted to get back to my parents' house where I was living. I knew there was food in the refrigerator. I just didn't want to be there. I said, what good am I going to do these people? I just want out. But another part of my mind reasons that if I had left, I would have fled the scene. I'd probably never be able to go back into a scene like that again. What was frightening and unsettling was the element of the unexpected, not knowing what was going to happen minute to minute. So I stayed. Now, this division is going on in my thoughts, but outwardly I look calm and in control. But I'm like, I don't want to be here. This is ugly. This is abnormal. And I think one of the most unsettling things that manifested was there was a picture of Jesus Christ, a framed picture. They were Catholic. They had a lot of religious iconography around their house, and a cross was thrown off of the wall, a crucifix actually that was mounted on the wall. And I glanced at that picture of Jesus, hoping the boy would too, and it would calm him some. Okay, I was standing in the same place. Within a minute, I turned around. That picture had inverted. It was upside down, and it was standing up. So what a freaky thing to think that I'm like a foot away from this picture, and somehow it had flipped around. That was unsettling, and to say the least, and quizzical. At one point, I felt that the spirit was trying to take over me. It was bouncing around the room. I'm not usually prone to such suggestion, but I very suddenly, I distinctly remember it. I hope the passion comes through my voice when I'm recounting this. I felt I was being taken over. I felt an onrush of emotion that was alien to me. I felt anger and panic at the same time. This is frenzy of emotion. If I had given into it, I would have jumped out the window. We were on the first floor, but the window was closed. And, that's what something was telling me to do. I felt this overwhelming compulsion to jump out of that window. Of course, I did not. I resisted what was invading me. I just concentrated on my own sense of self. It left me shaken, but I thought, I'm Carl. Listen, not going to get a hold of me. And in the back of my head, which is the Mons area of the brain, I felt like fingers were touching my brain or something in, my cortex. This thing was sucked out of me. It just, boom, it's gone. I felt it leave me. And the emotion stopped, that bizarre onrush of emotion. At that instant, a young lady in the next room who was a participant, she fell to the floor and started pulling out her hair in handfuls. It seemed like it transferred from me to her because of the timing. And I got doused with a bowl of holy water, which was semi-comical. And this boy approached me again, threatening, with this threatening look in his face. And with the courage I had to feign, I looked at him and I held my hand up and I said, "Stop." I didn't say, "Cast you out, surrender, demon." I just said, "Stop." And he stopped. And I put my hands on his shoulders to reassure him it was all right and I wasn't afraid. And, that was successful. To my surprise, I thought this kid is messed up. I don't know how he's going to recover from this. After that exercise and expulsion, he was better. It seemed to drive this thing out. Now, obviously, part of it was a psychodrama, that he was convinced it was working. But when I've encountered other situations, it takes a while longer. And he was cured after that. Didn't have any. The only thing that happened was a month later, he and his family were driving in Providence. They drove by a cathedral church, and he started to scream as if he had a minor relapse. But after that, no more symptoms, nothing else. And if I could talk to him now, I doubt he'd remember that this happened to him because it was too sudden and too dramatic. The whole situation from start to finish took a year to be resolved from the time it started. So that was my ushering into the demonic realm. And as Ed Warren said, once you've encountered the demonic realm, you're forever marked by them. Because my next few cases were apparently demonic. But then I knew that I would stand my ground, that I could handle this. It's very upsetting, but I could handle it. Your demonology is not a glamorous field. A lot of it is listening to hours of audio recordings, listening for a voice, or standing your ground in such a situation as that.
Most definitely. And, my biggest what the F moment wasn't necessarily It was quite a few times standing in front of a possessed individual, but I would say my biggest what the F moment was, in fact, with a demonic infestation case out of Massachusetts, where
That one, yes.
I was doing my usual routine of interviews, preliminaries, and emailing these people, talking to them on the phone. I knew that there was a family, 2 kids, and of course a husband and wife, and never seen the house before, did not even know the address at that point in time. So I could not look at this address up, see it through Google Maps, and zoom down like a creeper. So I never knew what this family looked like. I never knew what this house looked like in this.
You hadn't met them at this point at all.
No, not at all. And basically, within the week of that case, of going to travel that weekend to that case, within that week, I had a prolific nightmare, and this prolific nightmare was me dreaming of me traveling to this family's house, this household, and basically arriving, seeing this house, seeing the family members that I've never seen before.
This was in the dream?
And this was in the dream, or I would say nightmare. And in this nightmare, instead of helping this family, I went in and killed every single one of them very horrifically. Now, you're saying, what does this have to do with anything with what the F? Well, the craziest thing is why this nightmare is so prolific is when I went there that weekend and saw the house and saw the family members, the house and the family members were all spitting image to what my nightmare was. Instead, the only difference, I did not go in there and kill that family. We resolved the issue, but it was a scare tactic. It was fear-mongering. It was trying to get me to not come, whatever was there. But it was so prolific because never had I seen that house, never had I seen that family, and with the nightmare, I seen them, and it came to fruition, and it was legitimized by that nightmare that this is actually what I saw these people look like to every inch of detail. Every inch of detail.
James, what you just described is impossible.
Yeah, it is.
But it happened.
It did.
Right. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we got you for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio's Ghosts of the Great White North. Our guests tonight, our special guests from Duo Demonology, we got James Anito and Carl Johnson. Their website, demonology.org. I got Merle in studio, hair looking high and tight. Always a pleasure to have Merle here for Ghosts of the Great White North as we do this once a month here on the show. Coming up, we're going to learn more about some demonic stories. Hey, it's Halloween just around the corner. We need to be talking some spooky stories next on the Mighty SOR. Hour 3 next. It's good stuff, boys. Good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah,
I'm glad you're liking it.
Well, we're getting into telling the story. You can't just be indifferent telling these.
You got that right. I'll be right back.
All right. Is that your own?
That's my picture, yeah.
The someone's on there. They didn't put it up there.
No. That's my Skype deals. Now, from this moment on, when we do Skype calls, we have Mom set up our Skype account.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do a demonology image.
Our famous picture.
Our famous
with
picture.
The podium.
It was a good picture, though. But I do like our new recent sitting picture that people are using. Those sitting pictures that Kirsten
took.
Those are nice.
At least I like them. She was saying.
Oh, they're very, very well. Of course, you would think from a phone, but like Kirsten, not to make her sound like she's the greatest photographer in the world, but like she centered it.
Yeah, she worked on that for a while, setting that up.
Yeah, and like of course, the one with the light on, like the light, it gives it an ominous kind of like presence to it.
Yeah.
And with the light off, like it shows like you bring in the dark, like the darkness, and then bring in the light, kind of.
She's only using the light one though. I mean, for us, right?
What do you mean?
Well, you said there's a light one, there's a dark one.
Yeah, the one with the lamp off, the one with the lamp on. But yeah, no, even Ken DeCosta, which will be interesting to show that always.
Because we'll have that by the time we do the show on Friday. Well, that'll be up there.
Yes. Well, we won't go through Skype on that. That's through StreamYard, correct?
There's the StreamYard.
Yeah.
In fact, that was my first encounter. I had to set up the StreamYard. I didn't know
Oh,
I
for
could
the
do
show?
it. Yeah. Well, they made it easy. They sent me the duck. Yeah. You know.
That'll be interesting, that show, though. they're always
They're good. Yeah.
they're always kind of like,
say, "Whoa, boy! Oh, well, no."
it's always a bond burner. Like, they always ask, like, in-depth question. Like, Ken, remember when Ken...
He said he would. Yeah.
You know, he said he was going to ask...
I forget what he asked me, but it was, an easy one. But yeah, it's something.
I got a question for you guys.
Of
Sure,
course.
please. Talking amongst
Attachments. Do you have you guys ever been followed home from something you've dealt with?
Yes, I specifically have. I wouldn't call it demonic, but I was dealing with a case in East Providence, which is actually not too far down the road from here, and it was a case that was kind of sensationalized, and kind of the family was sort of exploited, but not by me, but the investigator that brought me on board. And they did like a YouTube series called "The House That Speaks," and as much as it was a rinky-dinky production, and wish I was never a part of it. The one thing that I dealt from that case is an attachment. I don't like how many people jump to that conclusion because there's so many natural things that occur. But the reason I dealt with that attachment is because of ego. I truly believe is that at that point in time, I had never been affected, never dealt with anything that to affect me beside, of course, the nightmare. But that's a dreamlike state. It's not like I've ever been physically affected, financially, mentally, so on and so on. So that case, I felt like I was untouchable. I went in there with egocentric.
You were young.
I was young, and I went in there with.
Still are, but you were younger.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went in there with the egocentric mindset, like I'm untouchable. I'm the greatest that I do. I'm the youngest demonologist that's ever existed. Like certain things like that in my head. And in that reality, I got the best of myself. So I was very open, and I basically got what I really deserved. I really call it a slice of humble pie because it really made me realize that you can't be egotistical. Because, before I jumped to that attachment conclusion, I thought it was life. I lost my apartment. I lost my job. I went from having money in the bank to no money. I lost my girlfriend. So like so many things happened that just seemed out of the realm of possibility of natural at that point in time. There are slumps in the road, but there was too many slumps at this point. But being a part of this field, I know quite a few people that believe they have the ability of intuition or sixth sense or are psychic, clairsentient, clairaudient. And about 10 people of different origin that didn't really know each other in some form or fashion all came to me and said, James, we don't feel something right about you. We kind of see your life degressing. We kind of see your life degressing, and we feel like there's something attached to you. Like the first few people, I'm like, I laughed it off. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, where'd you go? We lost you. Oh, that was Skype. There we go.
Oh,
now we got you.
Yeah, so about 8th or 10th person in, I kind of gave in and said, okay, this must be what people call an attachment. And, I was working with a man named Joe Andrade out of Taunton, Massachusetts, who at that time represented himself as a demonologist and very well spoken and very well knowledgeable in the subject. And he did a deliverance over me. And, of course, I had faith in the ability of it working. So after that deliverance, my life within a day seemed to get back to normal. So it was very.
You felt that was due to something that had attached itself to you.
Very much so, and that was because of my ego. I think it was a life lesson.
Ego made you vulnerable.
Ego made me vulnerable. Pride's a bad thing.
All right, guys, we got like 30 seconds left, and we're going to keep on rolling here. And thank you, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, everybody at Scoreboard. I know you're shut down. Brittany, you're closing up, but thank you for the love tonight with the Super Chat. Major Lee, same as you. Support this show by hitting that thumbs up on YouTube and doing a little shopping at the SOR Vault. Here we go with Hour 3, guys.
Get it to
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us tonight. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Let's find out what it is, shall we? How about we go with this one? Gigantomachy. There it is. Gigantomachy is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, once again, spacedoutradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We are talking tonight with Merle from Ghosts of the Great White North. He is in studio tonight, looking good, large, and in charge. And I don't mean that as a weight thing. Totally do not mean that as a weight thing. But he is looking good tonight as he's been hanging out here, heading on home back to the valley tomorrow. And on Ghosts of the Great White North tonight, we're talking demons all night long. From Duo Demonology, we have James Anito and Carl Johnson. Not to be confused with Alien Carl or Human Carl. We now have Demon Hunter Carl here on Spaced Out Radio and their website, demonology.org. Merle, you got a question for these great guys.
I've had a few requests for this question. How does one become a demonologist? What's your road to that?
I'll give this to the man, the myth, the legend first, as he, of course, obtained that title way before that I did. How did you get that title, Carl?
It seemed to find me. I was not actively pursuing demonology as an avocation. I just kept getting contacted about preternatural situations with a malevolent leaning, like the bad cases. If there was a paranormal group investigating a case, they said, well, we don't know if we're equipped to deal with this. Carl, can you come in? I'd say, okay. They may have heard about that past involvement with that 14-year-old boy, Lucas. And, well, eventually somebody brought, I'm a couple of years into this, somebody brought a magazine article to me. It was about the Warrens and about other paranormal investigators. And they said, the demonologist from Rhode Island, it was only a couple of lines, the demonologist from Rhode Island, Carl Johnson. So in print, I saw, demonologist? Oh, okay. I'll accept that. It has a ring to it. I'll be that until somebody tells me I'm not. And that's how I became a demonologist, really. Again, it seemed to find me. Maybe it was some kind of bizarre simpatico that brought these to me. But I had forged a reputation as somebody who would stick with it. So that's how I became it. And it was like researching, reading, talking to other people who pursue demonology, whether they call themselves by that label or not. How about you, James?
Well, it would be more to the sense that even though I was very interested in theological studies at a young age, it would be more so that I was the tech manager of Beyond the Veil Paranormal, which happened to be founded by Carl L. Johnson. We knew similar associates, and I wasn't originally a part of his team, but we knew similar associates, and he worked on an episode in Orange, Massachusetts on The Haunting, right? The Haunting on Animal
The
Planet.
investigation was documented for the TV series The Haunted on A&E Network.
Yeah, and it was an episode called Demon Attack, and I happened to know the team that got Carl involved, and I had truly looked up to Carl and his brother Keith on the first two seasons of Ghost Hunters, and of course knowing King James' demonology and understanding some lore of demons and the study of it. I was enthralled and excited that there were other people out there in the world that actually did research this topic, and they were presented on a show that became a hit, a phenomenon itself. And so dealing with these associates, I eventually got to meet Carl, and they eventually, him at that time, Dina Palzini, and Carl asked me to become the tech manager of their group because I come from a technical background. That I went to school for computer programming and computer networking in high school at trade school, so I had a very large tech background, and so within those confines of working with Carl, it was something that, especially dealing with residentials and layering those onions that we dealt with when dealing with people, it really led me down to wanting to study demonology, and I equate Carl to be my first mentor. But to become a demonologist, especially in this modern age, that was 40-something years ago, where there were only a few people that could be quantified and titled the word demonologist, one being Ed Warren, of course, and Carl Johnson and Keith Johnson. So nowadays, the best way to do it necessarily is to actually learn under somebody with the credentials that are respected.
The mentoring protege system.
Yes, mentor and protege system, like you would with like any trade system, like a journeyman or a master's to an apprentice. And learn under people that are truly qualified and handle these cases with the true intent, good intent of their heart, but are respected by the churches, like especially specifically the Catholic Church, because it is very strong within the way it does things. But also other churches that respect the form and title of demonologist and what we do. And of course, respect from other demonologists that work in this field that have 40-something years of experience. And there are quite a few people that are in this field that could be called the demonologists, that are titled the demonologists, that have this very longevity in this field in their studies. So to become a demonologist, I would say the best way is to actually learn from one that is well respected.
Yes, especially since I tell James, I didn't do everything right. There are some things I'd do differently if I had to do over again, and I learn as I go along.
Most of them.
And that's outlined in my book, written with Lana J. Brock, my co-author. It's Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook. And so that gives some of my case histories in it. Some I've described tonight, and others I told of in the book. Also, essays on paranormal theory.
Yep. But it's the expansive thing, too. As demonologist is not, for the listeners, it's just not the study of demons. It's the study of all realms of the metaphysical, psychology, neuroscience, anthropology, biology. There's many different incorporations and studies within demonology, especially when you apply it. Like we call ourselves applied demonologists, like Carl said. So there are many things that we have to look at as well, because you're dealing with people, so you have to understand social sciences. You have to understand the things that come with dealing with people and going to somebody's house and the human body itself as well.
I got to ask you guys, in regards to this, when you're dealing with demons, I want to know, is there a real battle going on for good versus evil, God versus the devil? Look, I never grew up religious, but I have a strong belief in God, and that is how I grow up. That's what I believe, and I do believe there is good and evil. But when it comes to the paranormal side of everything, is that battle going on in everyday hauntings?
Only in the sense that the personalities have a sense of moral good and evil. I don't think it's a universal evil or a universal good. I could be wrong. I don't know. See, it comes down to the big dunno, D-U-N-N-O. Dunno, insufficient data. My personal thing is that I don't think there are these vast echelons of evil spirits that are warring against the human race. I think it's more individual level, and I don't think it's that global thing where the celestial beings are versing the infernal ones. I just don't think it's universal. I don't think there's a demonic empire and an angelic realm. I do believe in angels. I do, conversely. I just don't know how organized they are And again, I only say I don't believe in it because I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not declaiming it either. So we'll find out.
Yes, that's a good point of view on Carl's spectrum. You really have to look at the history of human civilization and the changes in concept of what good and evil is. Without Epicurus and theodicies such as like karma and dualism, before dualism there really wasn't a sense and form of good and evil like we understand it nowadays. Before, it was, the personality of a god. They could be good or evil, depending on the personality of that standpoint. If they wanted to strike down an individual, it was because a human did something. So these natures were performed in a judgment-like state. So with the idea of good and evil and there being a war, that really more comes with Greek philosophy and the adaptations of, like I said, Epicurus. So it's hard, civilization has changed in some concept of their opinion of life after death as well. So I think you have to take the commonalities, like the similarities to what has come before and is what is present, and look at these similarities and say, okay, this hasn't changed from the Akkadian Empire. Yeah. This hasn't changed from this. And if this still follows to this day, there's a reason for that. But if there's been fluctuations and changes, is that because of understanding, or is that because of cultural influence, power of suggestion? So it's tough. I do believe in angels and demons, but I don't know if there's an eternal war. I don't really know. Like Carl said, I see it as more of an individual situation, because I haven't seen hundreds of angels and demons fighting before me.
Right, James, I got a question for you in regards to being a man of faith and a deacon in the church and everything like that. Okay, what's the difference between a psychic and a prophet? Because we're not supposed to follow psychics according to biblical statements.
Yes,
but on the flip side, isn't a prophet a psychic?
In some form of fashion. So, and you would interpret that a psychic is somebody that gets the future or some sort of fortune telling from a spirit, instead of a prophet getting this telling from God, which could be interpreted, how would they know it's God? Did God perform some, like within the Testaments of Moses, the first 5 books with the Torah, you see within the writings of, like, of course, Exodus and Deuteronomy and situations like that, you see what God presents for these to be notified that this is God and this is why it's presentable. Now, as for psychics, they are receiving a message from a spirit that is unknowing, that can't testify for the nature. They can't perform a miracle. They can't perform something with substance in front of that individual beside this message. And that's why there's caution with that, because anybody can be told something. That's how people are manipulated by other humans. You're told this, they believe it to be fact. So that's where the dangers lie. I do employ psychics and mediums in my cases, because I think any box should be checked to determine a situation, and it's something that hasn't been disproven. So if it hasn't been disproven, then why not use it as a part of your articulating a case and understanding a case? But that's the difference. One, supposedly God spoke to them.
Yes.
And,
so ordained by God, the prophet is given a gift by God,
yes,
a responsibility given by God Almighty, and the psychic, it's their own innate ability.
It's their own impression.
They feel it's their third eye, and they are receptors, and this information comes to them.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's still an argument, though, because in my opinion, maybe I'm looking at this too humanely, but you can't really prosecute a person for being a psychic if a prophet does the exact same thing.
Well, I don't prosecute that. I use them. I think
pardon me. I just want to clarify. I'm not saying you, my friend.
I definitely, I think it's open into interpretation. I think where Carl said earlier with the Ouija board, if you take the Ouija board and it tells you to do something, and you take that and you do it, you don't cross the street.
Right.
If a psychic tells you that spirit said, "Don't cross the street," are you going to adhere to that? As if God says, "Don't cross the street," and then throws a meteor or some kind of huge rock in the middle of the road and presents that this is why you don't cross the road. There's a difference between spirit.
Then you're going to find your religion real fast.
You are. So yes, there's some ways to twist the concept, but in some form or fashion, that's why people don't understand. That's why the biggest debate of theology versus science and has always been there, because what is the difference? What is this adherence? So I think people need to read not in between the lines, but they need to read the whole context of what the story is. So it's those are the ways that you can look at it to understand the differences. But in the same, like you said, are they technically the same thing? Yes, they could be, but one's not talking to spirit, one's talking to God, and one's talking to an earthbound spirit or an angelic force.
Again, you got the big to know. But
yeah.
What it, quote H.P. Lovecraft, the horror fiction writer, one of his famous quotes is, the chief, if I can remember it, the chief delineation between theology and mythology, or is it mythology and theology, lies in lies in acceptance. That is, to what degree one embraces one or the other. A person embraces one or the other. So it's acceptance. If somebody believes in it, and all myth was, taken literally at one time.
It was, yeah.
If a person believes it, it's theology. If they know it's a fantasy, or regarded as a fantasy, then it's mythology. Yeah. So it's the celestial dichotomy that is ongoing.
All right, guys, we have 5 minutes left on this show. Give us one 5-minute story of one of the scariest investigations you've done. Just for the listeners, for a spooky story, Halloween.
I would have to say one of the scariest non-demonic cases I ever dealt with was probably Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. And it was one of the greatest locations I've ever been to, where so many phenomena was happening. I would say that the craziest story I could give is, this is the only time it's really ever happened, besides maybe once or twice, is I was walking with this individual. I was behind him. His name was Sean Bohevia, a very fascinating investigator and a tester for ID software that makes games like Doom, which is crazy, But I was walking with him, and I was at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. This place is active that night, and all of a sudden, basically, I see 3 marks appear on this gentleman's neck out of thin air, and he didn't scratch himself. Mind you, I'm behind him, and I didn't see him scratch himself. He didn't walk into anything, but these 3 scratches appeared. But within that same night, beside the 3 scratches, there was also, we talked about shadow people, but there was a force of light. This manifestation of this white shadow person instead of a black shadow person, which was seen by multiple people. So that's a Halloween story for 5 minutes. I could tell way more, but I will steal away from Carl's.
No, is that 5 minutes for both?
Yes.
You're talking about 2.5 minutes for each of us?
Yes.
I've got to just jump right in. I used to play on a Ouija board with my sister, and would say, of course, I said, I was 15, she was 13 when we started this. And I said, give us a sign. And it's the planchette spelled out cellar, C-E-L-L-A-R. So we went to the top of the cellar stairs. We were there about 20 minutes. We were just going to give up. And there was a wood partition going down the side of the stairwell. We heard 3 raps on that. And then we heard 3 again. Very distinct. Well, a year later, I moved my bedroom down there. I used to share a bedroom with my twin brother. I wanted my privacy. I thought he snored. And so I just wanted my little adolescent bachelor pad down there. Well, we would hear shuffling around, and furniture that we had stored down there would move. It'd be relocated in the morning. The dehumidifier would have been moved around. So anyway, regardless of that, I moved my bedroom down there. I had my black and white television. And then one night I'd been down there, and I started to hear the banging again. I said, uh-oh, I forgot about that. It's happening, and I'm down here. Okay, so I got out of bed, and I saw in the dim light, I saw the figure of a woman dressed in vintage clothing walk across the floor. The eeriest thing about that was she was gliding. She was making no sound as she walked. That was what scared me about it. And she walked by me and just disappeared and faded into the shadows, blended with the shadows. That was truly scary. I ended up seeing her 3 times. I saw her again the same way, took that same trajectory walking towards me, but then veered off to the side. I saw her clearly. I got a vivid memory of it. And then one time, some years later, my grandfather was convalescing. He had his bones were degenerating and his spine becoming decalcified, so I was helping him out. He lived upstairs in addition to the house. So I just helped him out, go to the bathroom and all. I went back to bed. It was dawn. And I laid down, and I didn't go to sleep right away. I laid down, and I noticed this woman is standing next to my bed. So I looked up, and I just said, I remember her hair, her eyes looking at me. I thought we had company, so I just said, hello. And then within that second, I recognized, that's the woman. That's the ghost. And she's looking at me very intently, as spirits will, without blinking. And she just disappeared by vanishing. She evaporated from the bottom up. And she was gone. And I sat up in bed, and I said out loud to myself, I said, how am I ever going to get anyone to believe this? Because I didn't have a chance to be afraid that time. Yeah. But I saw the ghost walking. It would be like 4 seconds, something like that. It's a long time to be watching that. Have a chance to actually look at this being, look at this apparition, and realize I'm looking at something from the past. I'm seeing a ghost. I had that realization. And I feel blessed that I did. I didn't feel very blessed at the time, but looking back, it's one of 8 times I've seen a ghost. Or 4 of that. And then one time after I moved out, I came back to collect some papers, and I saw there was an opening in the cloth curtains I had set up there years before. And I saw someone walk by, but I didn't hear them. And I said, Keith, I thought it was my twin brother wearing socks or something. No, nobody was there.
Very interesting.
That's my Halloweeny story. It's hard to, a little scary when it's in your home, happening. In other people's houses, that's fine. I had to go to bed there.
Gentlemen, I want to say a big thank you for all of you coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. I really do appreciate getting to know you guys, James and Carl. Demon Hunter Carl, because we don't want to get you confused.
My title now.
Yes, but you guys were absolutely amazing. Your stories were amazing. Your knowledge is incredible. And on behalf of Merle, I want to say a big thank you for coming on.
Entirely welcome. It's really gone by quickly for us. I thought it might be, how are we going to fill this all up? And it went by quickly.
It went quick. It went quick.
And we enjoyed it very much so.
Trouble is, it's our bedtime, and now I'm wide awake.
Well,
I got to drive for 20
you
minutes.
guys get to go to bed. We get to go to commercial here on Spaced Out Radio. Merle, thanks for a great show, buddy. You're sticking around for the news yet. So we'll talk to you in just a second. More Spaced Out Radio coming up. Good job, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Give them a few claps.
It's a good show.
You guys did a good job. Very well, good production, guys.
Oh, you guys are awesome. Let's do this again. This was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch.
that.
Maybe in a month or two, we'll call you back and share
Just
some
let
more
us know
stories.
when.
Absolutely. Home run, Merle. Home run. Good job.
You've already had the Canadian home run. You hear he said that? You've already had the Canadian Thanksgiving, so maybe you're on the holidays, whatever.
Oh yeah. We're all go now. We're hard pressed now until Christmas time. Well, we got
Okay.
Remembrance Day in between, but I don't consider that really a holiday. It's a day of remembrance, right?
We'll remember.
We'll remember.
Remember our ghost stories.
Absolutely.
Oh.
All right, my
All right,
friends.
guys.
I got to get ready for the news, but great show. Thank you for your time, and you guys were amazing.
Thank you very much, and we hope to be on very, very soon.
Definitely. See you soon, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Honestly, Merle, fantastic guests. Fantastic guests.
Yep.
You might.
Are the mics off?
No, the mics are not off.
I enjoyed that show. They're very factual. I like it when we have guests where we don't have to talk a lot because we're here to feature them.
You don't talk it on anyways.
I held that show for 2 hours. You were just sitting there twiddling.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
100%.
Should we have a vote?
Yes.
Should we have a vote? If you're in the YouTube chat room. I'm teasing.
I know. I want non-partial voting.
No. They my people here, they'll probably vote for me.
Pity votes.
Pity votes. Exactly. So this is what we're gonna do, Merle. We're gonna do the news here. Then we're gonna quickly edit the show. Then we still got some stuff to go over, so we'll make a run to Timmy's.
What do we have to go over?
Stuff.
Hmm.
Stuff. And then we'll call it the night. Lots of show left, though. Hey, Jarhead, thank you so much, buddy. Thank you, Roy. Where's my man, Eugene? Corinth says he is voting for the gnome who is impersonating Merle.
I don't think I would be in this office if I was a gnome, because that is a kryptonite of Dave's.
I see. No, not anymore. Not anymore. Weatherly cured me. By the way, I'm adding a bunch of people to your Paranormal Roadtrippers Facebook group.
Thank you. If there's anyone interested in your YouTube land to join our Facebook page, the Paranormal Roadtrippers, you can also join our Instagram page at the Paranormal Roadtrippers.
Absolutely. Hey, gorgeous Teresa, before you leave, thank you for the super chat. I always appreciate you, my beautiful friend. Love you, and can't wait to see you again, because you always seem to show up at the conferences I'm speaking at, which I don't mind. I actually enjoy that, even though I missed you in San Francisco last year, or earlier this year. Grendel, thank you for the super chat as well. Thank you so much. I love that you support us like the way you do. I really do appreciate that. Who else we got here? Excuse me. Corinth, no, you are too far away from Timmy's, so you can't come. Texas, your donut may be stale by the time it gets there. Truth.
Yeah.
Truth. You know what we're going to do one day? We're going to go to Texas, Merle. We're going to go to Kevin and Kevin's Beard, two separate entities. We're going to go onto his property in Texas, and we're going to go hunting hogs.
I'm down.
He has hogs on his property. He's got, 20, 50 acres or something like that. And I'm like, dude, he goes, come on down and go hunting hogs with us. And I'm like, yeah, totally. I said,
make our own bacon.
He goes, but I said to him, how do you know if the hogs are going to be there? Like, I don't know. It's like deer hunting up here, right? Or anything hunting up here. He goes, dude, they are on my property every night. He goes, I could take hogs every night. That's awesome. We got to do that.
We do.
Mm-hmm. I think it's funny that you're a guy who's not a UFO guy, yet you have on your phone screen, the truth is out there.
It's different.
No, it's not.
But there's no UFO and it's X-Files.
Doesn't matter. X-Files was all about UFOs and aliens, man.
Only the end seasons. The first 70% was all paranormal.
You're on drugs.
Nope.
You're on drugs.
I pass on grass.
Gail also votes for you. Captain Shirky Poo, she votes for you. All right, let's get the news going here, everyone. Hold on. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am Dave Scott, the legendary host of this show. Oh, not even close. Not even close. But hey, I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor. Hit that subscribe button. our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, the news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and the sometimes Florida. Oh, Florida. You never seem to let us down. You never seem to break our hearts. Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. A now former, and I say that right, a now former sheriff's deputy in Florida has been arrested after allegedly performing an exorcism on a child and telling another there were demons in his home and to shoot anyone who entered.
Wow.
This is awesome. 37-year-old Christopher Doherty, don't know if he's the singer, or is that Daughtry?
Daughtry. You're thinking of Shannon Doherty.
Oh, whatever. No, not Beverly Hills 90210. Anyways, Christopher Doherty, the former now cop, all right, was arrested on child abuse allegations the same day he was fired from the Orange County Sheriff's Office on an unrelated matter, according to the agency. He had been a sheriff since '06. Deputies responded Thursday to a 911 call about a residential alarm and determined there was evidence of child abuse going on at the apartment operated by the former, or occupied by the former officer. A girl wearing body armor and a Kevlar helmet was lying on the ground in a shooting position with a rifle. A boy was armed with a taser, and Doherty was in possession of a handgun. The children told investigators Doherty performed an exorcism on the boy before telling the girl that there were demons in the home and directing her to shoot anyone who entered. Doherty was detained and taken to hospital. Yeah, he needed it.
100%.
He needed it. Where he was held under the Baker Act, a Florida law enabling those determined likely to inflict harm on themselves or others to receive emergency medical health care for mental issues. So moving on here. Doherty was also terminated from the Orange County Sheriff's Office for an unsatisfactory performance finding in a separate matter, the agency said. While this deputy was terminated for a pattern of unsatisfactory performance, there are several serious criminal allegations here, Sheriff John Mina stated. As law enforcement officers, we are held to the highest standards of code of conduct, whether on duty or off duty, but we are also concerned about the deputy's mental health. The relationship between Doherty and his two children remains unclear. This guy, he's in trouble. He's in trouble.
A little bit.
Yep. All right, moving on. The Norwegian official who is responsible for daylight savings time in their country has apologized for adding an additional hour to what has already been a very demanding year. Iselin Nybo, who duties as Minister of Trade and Industry, including implementing daylight savings time, said the clocks will be set back an hour this Sunday morning in accordance with the traditional time change. As Minister of Time, I strongly regret that 2020 will be another hour longer. This has already been a very demanding year for many, he states. She screwed that one up. She encouraged Norwegians, I better learn my Norwegian names. She encouraged Norwegians to look on the brighter side to the time change. When we set the clock back, the night gets longer by an hour. This means that when we get up the next day, the sun has managed to get a little further up above the horizon than at the same time the day before, and we get a brighter morning than we could have otherwise. You know, daylight savings time, Merle, is the biggest waste ever. And I really didn't notice how much it was kicking the crap out of me till last year. Like, last year was the first time it hit me.
We don't need to mess with it. Just keep it as is.
Exactly. I mean, who really thinks that you could get a longer rug by cutting the bottom off and sewing it to the top?
Exactly. Some people do, though.
I
It's
know.
amazing.
It's unbelievable. Anyways, the European Parliament voted in 2019 to back a proposal to do away with the twice-yearly daylight saving time change with a goal of eliminating it by 2021. That's supposed to happen in BC here, but we're waiting on California, Washington, and Oregon in order to make up their minds so we can get rid of ours. Come on, it's time. It's 2020. Give us something good for once and get rid of daylight savings time. All right. Captain Shirk has this one. A beekeeper left a nest containing 1,500 Asian hornets outside a town hall in France in protest at what he said was a lack of help from the local authority in tackling the invasive species. Christian Grasland, he's not very popular right now by doing this, said he delivered the nest of hornets to a municipal building in Maron in the Brittany region of northwest France to raise awareness about Asian hornets. And, I wonder if he's thinking that they're going to fly away and make more Asian hornets nests. I don't think so, because this is a selfish protest, as most are. Anyways, the insect is the largest member of the wasp family, and conservationists have warned that the invasive species' existence in Europe could have devastating impacts on local honeybee populations. Of course it will. And I need my honey. I like honey. You like honey, Merle?
Honey and lemon in my tea is fantastic.
Doesn't work for a sore throat, though.
No, but it tastes good.
I know, but I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, it works for a sore throat.
Wives' tales.
Total wives' tales. Anyways, so the Asian hornet was apparently introduced to Europe in 2004 when they are believed to have entered France via cargo. Since then, there have been numerous sightings of Asian hornets across Western Europe. They are different from the Asian giant hornet, known as the murder hornet, which has been sighted in North America, but it is not known to be present in Europe. And I am a friend of the bee and an enemy of the Asian hornet, Grasland was quoted. Then why did you deliver it to City Hall, you moron? Let's be real here. Let's be real. Moving on. It looks like the Washington nameless football team has decided on a name for next season. The Washington football team. Yeah. Creative.
Very. You had me stunned there.
Though it was originally thought the Washington football team would be a one-season stopgap after the franchise ditched its controversial name in the summer, it now appears the organization will use the new moniker for at least another year. There's a pretty good chance we will be the Washington football team next season, said team president Jason Wright. On July 13th, the team retired the name and logo it used for 87 years. You know what I'm noticing about this story? They're not even saying the former name.
Just say it.
They were the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
Right? I don't agree with that name. I thought it was a little old. Okay. Right? But it was time. But I can't believe that the author of this story, Ted Homeland, doesn't even have the nerve to write the name. I don't know. That's bad journalism in my part. Bad journalism.
I agree.
Anyways, the football team goes on to say, I think next year is fast because of how the brand has come together through uniforms, through league approval processes. We could get there quicker. It's actually pretty hard to get there that quickly because of all the steps that need to happen. Daniel Snyder, who has owned the team since 1999, has long been opposed to changing the team's name and vowed in 2013 to never change his view. He even fought all the way to the Supreme Court to protect the team's original name, the Redskins. I added the Redskins because that, technically in the writing aspect of this, that should have been added in the story.
It's pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. Snyder was forced to change his tune, though, after corporate sponsors FedEx, which has its name on the stadium the team plays in, Nike and Pepsi put pressure on the team to axe the old handle. I'm okay with that. Change the name, okay? But let's not be embarrassed. All right. Captain Shirk didn't want me to add a story, but I needed a Canadian story tonight. Okay? How drunk do you have to be, Merle, to do this?
Hit me.
Okay? So this young lady has a few drinks. decides after a night out, like many of us do, we want to go through the drive-thru and maybe grab a burger because there's nothing great or nothing greater than having a little grease after a night of festivities. All right? So a Toronto woman goes to McDonald's. She orders a hamburger. Hold the hamburger.
That's very common. Where I live, a lot of people order the Big Mac without the meat.
Yeah. Well, then you're not ordering a Big Mac.
You're ordering bread and Thousand Island.
Exactly. But she took it a step further. Shirky Poo's going to be mad at me for running this one, but I had to. It's a Canadian story. So this woman goes to McDonald's. She goes through. She requests one hamburger, sans bun, with no mustard, onions, pickles, or beefy patty. What she did want, though, and this was very specific, were 2 packets of Heinz ketchup in a takeout box. It was an order that would have put Meg Ryan's When Harry Met Sally character, who made custom alterations to a food order, to shame. So, this is what her story is. The woman's husband posted the McDonald's receipt to Instagram. So we had a few drinks last night, and the wife decides, they're one of these couples that has both names. How do you say trust in a relationship? Let's both have the same Facebook or Instagram.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's one of those. So right there, you can't trust either of them.
One of them screwed up. That's why they have that.
Exactly. All right? Exactly. So at Katie... Oh, I read it wrong. Sorry, it's a Dutch name. It's a Dutch name with the mark at the end. Mm-hmm. I just read the last part. Anyways, so Katie decides she wants a McDonald's hamburger to cure her hangover. And so her husband writes, now Katie is the type of person who will make modifications to a classic, no pickles, no onions, etc. So this is what she ordered. No pickles, no onions, no mustard, no bun, no patty. They literally sent us 2 ketchup packets. His wife commented, #whoops. Ketchup. All right, back to Shirky Poo's stories here. The ocean is as black and chipped obsidian, yet which way you look, dozens of bright lights illuminate the water at night sky. Nearly 400 nautical miles from the South American mainland, the crew of a Peruvian Coast Guard ship count more than 30 Chinese squid boats lighting up the sea like a city at night. Some of the boats shine luminous green, others shine blinding white, as like alien spacecraft, because, we do have aliens on this planet. Rigged alone, each of the side ships with the lights, and it can attract giant squid near the surface where they can be hauled in from the ocean with long metal arms. So the Coast Guard cutter, Rio Canete, is drifting within 100 meters of these, and, he says, yeah, that's pretty much enough. We're not going to be doing this. We got to get them out of here. We got to save the squid, man. Got to save the squid. More than 250 Chinese ships have been detected in their waters since July. That's near the Galapagos.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of good stuff over there.
A lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff. Anyways, Hawkeye 360. I think Science Bob worked on Hawkeye 360.
No, really?
I do believe so. A radio frequency data analytics firm. Yes, he did. He actually helped start that company, Science Bob. Reported that the boats were going dark by switching off their AIS satellite tracking and entering the island's exclusive economic zone. This is how wars start. First, it starts with squid with the lights on. Then it's squid with the lights off. And now it's going into somebody else's territory. Bad. Bad Chinese fishermen. Bad.
Very bad.
Very bad. Let's move on. All right. So young Alyssa Carson, she's 19 years old, already an astronaut. She is apparently, preparing to become the first person to walk on Mars. I don't know if I would do that. Born in Louisiana in March 2001, doesn't that make you feel old? Carson took keen interest in all things space from an age of 3, and she has seen a space-themed episode of The Backyardigans and has remained focused on her career ever since. She's the only person to have attended every single space camp available, which includes those held in Canada and Turkey. All right? The teen is also the youngest ever person to graduate from the Advanced Space Academy at just 16. That was back in 2014. In 2014, was the first person to complete the NASA Passport program by attending each of its 14 visitor centers across 9 different states. This girl's addicted. She is addicted to space.
Sounds like it.
You know what? She's the kind of girl who is going to make big things happen. Totally. You could tell. She's got that drive. She's got that energy. She's what we need going to Mars. Totally what we need going to Mars. Anyways, so now, oh, goodness, I'm excited for this young lady. Now at just 19, Carson is part of a group of young astronauts and hopeful space explorers that have a common goal of becoming the first crew to land and walk upon the surface of Mars. She and her peers are currently preparing to mount an effort to get onto NASA's radar in the hope of being chosen to form the team that looks to resume space exploration once the corona pandemic is behind us. The trainee has also amassed a heavy following on Twitter, nearly 20,000 people interested in the knowledge she has to share. She is also having a significant following on Instagram, where she shares her wisdom and video content imported from her TikTok to enlighten her 332,000 subscribers. I don't even have 3,000 subscribers on Instagram.
I have a combined of about 3,000 of my two.
Yeah. She's got 332,000.
She wins.
Yeah, this young lady is, she seems like a genius. Good for her. I hope that she is the one. Let's remember her name.
Give her a clap. There you go. Good.
Yeah, right there.
Strong.
Right there. That's strong Canadian clap there for this young lady. I bet you we remember her name. She's going in the history books.
I can see that.
Totally. I don't know what Captain Shirk meant by this story here. But apparently police in Paraguay, maybe she got busted. Maybe. Okay? Because Shirky Poo gets a little off the cuff every now and again. We got to control her, reel her in every now
Excitable?
and again. Yeah. All right. Police in Paraguay found a record of 2.3 tons of cocaine hidden among a charcoal shipment destined for Israel. They said the drugs had an estimated street value of $500 million. It is the largest drug seizure police have made in the South American country. The cocaine, which is now going to go missing, makes some people upset and ruin a lot of parties in Israel, was found in a container at Terraport, a private port in the city of Valletta, near the capital of Asuncion. I can't pronounce Clam's passwords, but I can pronounce Asuncion.
Asuncion.
Thank you. 2 people have been detained. One of them, the former director of a state TV channel. Oh, there's going to be some upset people over this. $500 million. $500 million. Oh, well, what do we got time? We got time yet here. Let's continue on. The crew of the International Space Station plugged a long-standing air leak after locating the source with the help of a tea bag. So they went teabagging on the International Space Station.
So they teabag on the International Space Station.
That's what I just said. They teabagged on the International Space Station. Anyways, Russian space agency Roscosmos said the station had been experiencing a mysterious air leak since September 2019. Nothing scary about that up in space when you're losing oxygen. But the leak was minor enough that fixing it just wasn't considered a priority until the leak rate increased in August. Because it's like a tire on a vehicle. We never worry about it until it starts leaking faster.
100%.
Unfortunately for these guys, they don't have the ability to, pull up to a Chevron or a Shell or an Exxon or a BP.
Nope.
And just get her fixed right there. There's no Canadian Tire there that you just pull into.
Not even a Cal Tire.
Not even a Cal Tire, exactly. So Roscosmos said the leak source was finally found when cosmonaut Anatoly Ivanishin, you see that? Nice Russian pronunciation there, broke open a tea bag.
Ivana.
No, it's Ivanishin.
Okay.
Second syllable gets the heavy pronunciation. Anyways, they open a tea bag, allowing the leaves to float free in the transfer chamber. of the Zvezda service module and the station. The crew then sealed off the area and monitored the leaves on video cameras, noting that the tiny tea fragments were floating towards a scratch in the wall that had been confirmed to be the source of the leak. Nothing a little duct tape can't cure.
Fixes everything.
It does. Two things you always need in life. You need duct tape, and you need WD-40.
Yes.
That's all you need in life. Hey, Merle, thanks for coming on Spaced Out Radio with Ghosts of the Great White North, man.
You're welcome.
Man of many words. We got Merle from the Paranormal Roadtrippers. Thank you, Captain Shirk, a.k.a. Shirky Poo, for giving us the delightful and talented news that we have for tonight. And thank you to our guests, demonologists from Dual Demonology, demonology.org, James Anatino and Carl Johnson, Demon Hunter Carl, not to be confused with Human Carl or Alien Carl.
I like those guys.
They're nice guys. Very nice guys. Hey, guess what, Merle? We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody in our chat rooms on YouTube, LGAB, Spreaker, Revolution Radio, Facebook, Space Travelers Club at our website, and all the snarkers and snarkettes hanging out on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. All of you were magnificent tonight. Thank you for your participation. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, Merle, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.